101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Friday, October 15th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 16 degrees, 17 in Smiths Falls, and here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. A rare appearance in front of reporters this morning for Premier Doug Ford, expected to deliver the details of the province's vaccine certificate QR code and app. Contrary to earlier reports, restaurants and gyms will still have to wait a couple of more weeks before capacity limits are lifted. Here's the latest from City News reporter Kevin Meisner.
The Verify Ontario app, that'll be used by businesses to scan your QR code. That is already available for download on app stores. Now, today we will get an update on the system from Premier Doug Ford and a couple of his key ministers as the Premier makes a rare appearance in front of reporters here at Queen's Park. He'll be joined by his Minister of Health and Minister of Digital Government at 11 o'clock this morning. 680 News will carry it live. The province is also rolling out the QR codes to the public in stages starting today. It's called the Enhanced Vaccine Certificate. You can download it from the Ministry of Health website. First up will be people with birthdays January through April. You can download that QR code today. Tomorrow, it's birth dates from May to August. September to December, your day is Sunday, October the 17th. Premier Doug Ford no doubt will be likely asked to explain further why small businesses, including restaurants and gyms, are still stuck at 50% indoor capacity, while sports venues with far larger crowds are already at full capacity. Chief Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Kieran Moore, was asked that yesterday. He says he wants to wait another week or two to look at COVID-19 infection stats and the effects of the Thanksgiving long weekend get-togethers.
It's data-driven. I know there's various opinions on when to open up what business over what time, but my commitment is that we'll follow the best evidence.
I'm Kevin Meisner.
City News time, 9:02. Now we are expecting a significant rainfall. This will start tonight in earnest into tomorrow morning and could get up to 50 millimeters just in certain areas. Here's City News meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Will come in two chunks, so rain at times heavy tonight, and then again through the morning and into the afternoon on Saturday.
Now, Jill says steadier rain should pass by game time, though, for Red Blacks and Als at TD Place Stadium. There will still be showers and some pretty strong winds as well for the 4 o'clock kickoff tomorrow afternoon. The price of the new main library has gone up, and there's nowhere near a shovel in the ground yet. Special Finance and Economic Development Committee will be held next Tuesday to update this project. A memo last night to City Council outlined the lowest bid still means added cost to both the library and the city. More on this with the Library Board Chair, Matt Luloff. That's coming up shortly on the Rob Snow Show. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau set to unveil the roster of cabinet ministers who will shepherd his government into a third mandate and will focus on finishing the fight against COVID and rebuild the economy. Among the first orders of business will be working with opposition leaders to ensure all members of Parliament are fully vaccinated before setting foot in the Commons, something the Liberals, Bloc Québécois, and NDP have all agreed on. Now, the cabinet will be announced on October 26. Ministers will have about a month to settle into those jobs before Parliament is recalled on November 22nd. And the backlash continues for Dave Chappelle's controversial new comedy special. Trans Netflix employees and their allies say they're going to walk off the job next week over the special called The Closer, because Chappelle makes numerous jokes at the expense of transgender and LGBTQ community. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Separating headlines
from hearsay.
It's the Rob Snow Show on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Friday. We made it. And I think this is the last we'll see of 20-degree weather for a while. I was looking at the super-duper long-term weather forecast from AccuWeather this morning. And I hate to break it to you, but I think this is all she wrote for 20-degree weather. Might not see 20-degree weather for another 6 months after today. It's been a Great fall, though, so far. David's still got the golf clubs in his car, I noticed. No complaints here. It's just lovely weather. Good morning. Welcome to the Rob Snow Show on City News. Lots of great Friday fare on the way, including Hall of Fame broadcaster, best-selling author, Lowell Green with his hot take on all the big news stories. Derek Fage will be back, host of Daytime Ottawa on Rogers Television. He always has an opinion on everything that's happening in town. And hey, there's been no shortage of things happening in town. He'll join us right after the 9:30 news. And City Councillor Matt Luloff represents Orleans Ward. He'll be here at 9:45. Councillor Luloff is chair of the Ottawa Public Library Board. And that is a big news story today. The soaring price tag for Ottawa's new main branch of the Ottawa Library. Just a bit over budget. $141 million more than the original estimate. Yikes. It's all about inflation, they say. Price of building materials. Back in 2018, the estimate for the new building was $192 million, and now it's north of $334 million, an increase of more than 70%. Now, when I read that story this morning, a few things came to mind. First of all, there are going to be lots of people in town who will once again be saying, why do we need a new library? It's the year 2021. Who goes to the library and borrows books anymore? They have no idea what they're talking about, and you should ignore them. Prior to the pandemic, in the year 2019, there were 4 million visits to branches of the Ottawa Public Library, okay? Who the heck goes to the library? Well, it turns out lots of people in the city go to the library every day. So that's one thing that came to mind. Oh, the naysayers, they'll be out in full force. Waste of money. But I also thought, if that's what the construction costs are doing to, a new library building, what are construction costs doing to the biggest construction project in the history of Ottawa? Phase 2 of light rail. The estimate for that project back in 2019 was $4.6 billion. Gosh, I hope that hasn't gone up by 73%. 26 days now, without light rail operating in the city. No matter the cost of light rail, you can't ride it today anyway. But Councillor Luloff, 9:45 Rob Snow Show. Check it out. Steve Warren on one of the biggest days in the history of our beloved Ottawa Senators managed to get a deal done with Brady Tkachuk. 22 years old. He will make an average of $8.214 million a year for the next 7 years. That's pretty good money if you can get it. Huh? I think a lot of people would be happy if they could get the .214. I'll take .214 for the next 7 years, Mr. Melnick. Then I could be able to buy gas. But the deal is done, and then the Sens went out and kicked the Leafs around last night. So all in all, a pretty good night. I have to say I was a pretty sour Sens fan last week, but I'm all smiles this morning. All is forgiven. All is forgiven. We're going to get into all the moves that the Ottawa Senators have made. And look, when it comes to this club, it's been a rough few seasons. I think we can all agree. But I think things are looking up. This is a team that is exciting to watch and is trending in the right direction. 15,159. The announced attendance for the home opener last night at Canadian Tire Centre, 15,159. Also in the news today, Doug Ford, news conference, 11 o'clock. We'll bring it to you when it starts. This is going to be about the QR code for the vaccine verification on your phone. I think most of the questions from the news media will have to do with reopening, however. I mean, it's all over the news that some kind of announcement is coming next week for bars, restaurants, other hard-hit businesses about capacity limits. I mean, if you can get 15,159 people into Canadian Tire Centre, why is the local sports bar still having to deal with capacity limits? Which is a fair question, isn't it? But the word is there's going to be an announcement next week, but then it could take, 2 weeks before the restrictions are actually eased. And there are already those. Doris Grinspun from the RNAO was on City News yesterday with Sam saying we shouldn't be easing restrictions at all right now. So this tug of war continues here in Ontario. 11 o'clock Doug Ford News Conference. And then we'll get instant reaction from our MPPs. 3 of them join us every Friday morning for a little discussion that we call the Queen's Park Week in Review. Every morning during the Rob Snow Show, we do the Talk Back Hour. It's an hour of phone calls. It's an hour of opinions, and it's the hottest hour of talk radio in town. Just ask around, and it's the Friday free-for-all today, so just about anything goes. We don't come up with the topics. You come up with the topics. We just do our best to roll with it. It can be about something that's in the news, not carved in stone. Maybe it's something that you think should be in the news. Whatever it is, just raise it here. I can be your ear to bend and your shoulder to cry on. You want to talk about 26 days without light rail? Let's do it. No judicial inquiry? Have at it. The mayor cutting people off during council meetings? We can get into all of that if you want to. Record prices for gasoline. Again today in Ottawa. David, I scored the deal of a lifetime this morning, my friend.
What did you get?
Cheapest gas price in weeks for Rob Snow. I was driving along Industrial Avenue near the train yards. And there's a Pioneer gas station there.
Okay.
I had to take a double take. Does that really say $1.31 a liter? $1.31 a liter? Does that really? And it was like,
U-turn.
Yeah. I squeezed every last drop that I could fit into my vehicle at that price. And then I head east down to Saint Laurent Boulevard, and just around the corner at the Petro Can, it's $1.44 a liter.
Don't you hate that?
Right? So it was like I won the lottery. But then I thought of, I feel like I got a bargain at $1.31 a liter.
Yeah. Used to keep driving at 131.
Yeah. But inflation, that's one of the big stories of the week. It's one of the biggest stories of the last few months. Inflation and labor shortages. Yeah. Help wanted signs all over the place. I was reading a report from StatScan doing some show prep this morning. And it says, this is Statistics Canada data. It's not Rob Snow data, okay? 730,000 job vacancies in Canada. And the average wage, StatScan measures this, the average wage that employers are offering to try and fill these vacancies, the average wage is $23 an hour. It's not that they can't find people to work for minimum wage. They can't get people to work for $23 an hour. $23 an hour. If you're working 40 hours a week, $23 an hour is almost $48,000 a year. Now, it's not Brady Kachuk money, but there was a time, and I don't think it was that long ago, when $48,000 a year was pretty good money. You know what? This show is a bargain at any price. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
This hour of the Rob Snow Show is...
When it came to opening the business, because I was so young, there was a lot that I didn't know about management, financial management, management of people, all around management, I think, is the word that I always come back to. I think that I always had a passion, and I knew that I wanted to create a space for people to get their hair done, but I had no idea, even having studied business management, what it really took to open a business as well as sustain a successful business. So in 2014, I was actually working with Angela Sutcliffe She was my business coach at the time, and she was like, what's your niche? Like, what separates you from other salons? And when we started to really dig, it was the curls. It was the fact that we work with all curl types, curly, kinky, wavy, coily, which is how we identify our curl types. And then you have straight hair as well, of course. But you know, more than 70% of the world has some sort of curl pattern to their hair. And we just realized that that was not being addressed. It wasn't something we learned about in school. So I've went to the States and I traveled all over to kind of gain the information that I have now to be able to share it with our clients and as well as with other stylists. So in March when it came, I thought it was gonna last, a week, 2 weeks, through, I think it started off at 2 weeks. And I was like, cool, I have 2 weeks to just relax, that's fine. So I was actually in a position where I was not happy, so to say, but I was a little bit happy, to be honest, just because of what I was experiencing personally. Now, when that extension started to happen, it was not a great feeling. It was very uncomfortable not knowing how I was going to support myself financially. So I'm so excited about the Academy. It's something that I started and I launched it during the pandemic. So I've been teaching for a number of years. I've been educating for a number of years. I educated at Algonquin. I've educated at Versailles Hair Academy. And I've also educated in my own space, in this space and my old space up on Greenbank. And so it was just a continuum of what, I've been doing for these years. When we have a client in our chair, it's not just about making your hair look great. It's about how do you go home and take what we've just taught you and emulate that. So now with a world where people want to quote unquote be diverse and inclusive, what does that really look like in a salon setting? And for me, it looks like being able to invite any curl type, any hair type really, because I can take care of straight hair types just as well as, I can take care of curls. And we cater to all curl types regardless of what you look like on the outside, we got you.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
He is the author of 9 best-selling books. He's in the Canadian Broadcasting Hall of Fame, and these days he's raising heck online and at the Coupe de Carpe. We say good morning to Lowell Green. Good morning.
Actually, 11 books.
Oh, apologies. Well, maybe 9 of them are bestsellers.
I think you're probably right. You're probably right. Talking about books, you and I are going to disagree this morning. I don't think we need a new main library.
Of course.
You know what? I don't believe the figures that they're giving us. There's about 30 some odd branches. I mean, my experience as a publisher and an author is that hardly anybody, to be honest with you, is reading or certainly not buying hardcover books anymore. All of the information that's available in the library is available online, and that's how most people are accessing literature. I don't know who is visiting the there's no question people are going in for free videos and stuff, but $335 million. By the time they build it, it'll be about $500 million for a new, main branch. I mean, you know what? Let's spend the money getting homeless people off the streets rather than building this brand new building. I don't understand it. I know you and I disagree on that, but it seems to me there are far better ways to spend our money. One of them might be to give us a system of light rail or any kind of public communication or commuter system that actually works.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Well, maybe we can call up our friends in Navan and they can get some of the Clydesdales together to taxi people around town.
At least they would get you there.
Yeah, they probably get you, get you a sleigh ride in the winter. It'd be more reliable than light rail, for crying out loud.
By the way, I have to remind here, I hate to say, well, actually, I enjoy saying I told you so, but you may recall, Rob Snow, that both Andy Hayden and I were about the only 2 doubters of light rail in the entire city when they were planning this.
Right.
And the contention that both of us had was that there are so many problems with light rail, the disruption of traffic, business, etc., for years, the huge cost. And what we suggested, actually it was Andy Hayden's, and he'd done a lot of research, was that rather than put light rail, we should put new electric rapid buses through a tunnel, through essentially the same system, but rather than running run buses, which he pointed out is by far the most modern way. And one of the reasons that we advanced this, and I agreed with him, was if you have a rail car going down, the entire system crashes. Whereas if it's a bus, well, it's not a big deal. You just go around the bus. At the time, a lot of people laughed at us, thought we were nuts. Well, how many days have we not had light rail so far now?
26 days in a row.
Yeah, I wonder if people still think that Andy Hayden and Lowell Green are nuts.
Well, they probably still think that, but nevertheless.
No question.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that I am a fan of Doug Ford. I think that generally speaking, he's done a pretty good job. He's made mistakes, no questions. But today, if you examine on a per capita basis, you will see that we are the safest province in the country. I think I've mentioned this before. Our hospitalization rates are the lowest of any province. Ditto the death rates. Considerably lower, for example, on a per capita basis than Quebec, Alberta, Saskatchewan, New Brunswick. I could go on and on.
Right.
But I don't understand why, more than 15,000 people at Canadian Tire Place last night. Hallelujah, we beat the Leafs.
Yep.
But the restaurants just around the corner restricted to only half capacity.
Yep.
It makes no
it doesn't make any sense. No, it doesn't really make a lot of sense.
You know, one of the problems with rulings like this is that, nonsensical rulings, and this is totally nonsensical.
Yeah.
It creates suspicion, skepticism in the public. Increasingly, when people see stupid mistakes like this, stupid rulings like this, then they begin to question all rulings, and they begin to question and be skeptical about the people that make these rulings.
Right.
We need people in our society to adhere to the rules. We need people to believe that the rules make sense and they're there for a purpose. There is no sense to this rule, and there is no purpose to it. If 15,000 people can jam into Canadian Tire Place, then we should be able to go to full capacity at Fratelli Restaurant. Okay, I mean, it makes no sense whatsoever.
I agree with you. Yeah.
And you know what? It just makes Doug Ford look, well, kind of foolish.
Well,
right?
plus, part of his brand is I'm in it for the little guy, right?
Yeah.
So how does it look like he's in it for the little guy, or does it look like he's in it for the billionaire NHL owners and their millionaire hockey players?
No question.
Right?
It just makes no sense whatsoever. Apparently, these decisions are coming from some of the health experts, Dr. Moore, etc. You know what? Come on, use your brain. It's rules, in order to be adhered to by the public, must not only be fair and just, but they must appear to be fair and just.
Like we just played a clip in our newscast there at 9:00 of Dr. Moore saying, "Well, we want to see what the impact is of people getting together for Thanksgiving." Well, that didn't stop you from having 15,000 people at the hockey game last night.
Precisely. Makes no sense.
Why didn't you wait until after you see what happened after Thanksgiving before you have 15,000 people at a hockey game?
Precisely. No sense, no rationale whatsoever.
No.
I'm talking about no sense and no rationale. It's been lost, I think, in the shuffle of all the other stories. But City Council has joined with a number of other city councils across this province and saying that by the year 2030, which is another 8 or 9 years, that all gas plants in this province should be shut down, and we must rely on so-called green energy.
Right.
I mean, is there anybody on city council with an ounce of brains, for God's sake?
Yeah, Randall Denley has a good column in the National Post about
Does he?
that
I
today.
haven't seen that.
Yeah.
But I mean, here, I'll give you this morning, and nobody knows this better than you. And when we're talking about green energy, okay, at 9:00 this morning, the province of Ontario was burning 15,706 megawatts of power.
Right.
Wind was providing, get this, folks, all you environmentalist kooks out there, get this, wind right now, 166.
Ooh.
Solar, wait,
1%.
solar, 2
megawatts.
Wind and solar at 9:00 this morning in the province of Ontario was providing slightly over 1% of our needs.
Right.
And these damn bobblehead idiots in city council say, "Oh well, we're going to have to scrap all gas plants within the next 8 or 9 years."
Yeah.
People, I mean,
yeah, and then the IESO responded to that because they have this call from 31 city councils across Ontario, and Ottawa's one of them, right? Stupidity is contagious among municipal councils, apparently. But so they said, well, we looked at this and we said, sure, we could try to do that, but you would have rolling blackouts and everybody's hydro bill would go up 60%.
I mean,
and that was the best case scenario.
I mean, do these people and city council, do they not understand what's going on here? All you have to do is go to ieso.ca. It is the simplest website in the world. ieso.ca. See how much power we are burning and where it's coming from.
Yeah.
Right now, just slightly more than 1% is coming from wind and solar. 42 wind farms, millions of solar panels, billions and billions and billions of dollars, and we're getting about 1%.
1%.
For God's sake, do you realize that, here's something else that they don't seem to understand, okay?
All right.
They say, well, we need more wind farms. You could cover the entire province with windmills. You could have a windmill in every backyard, 4 windmills in every front yard, okay?
Yep.
You could have windmills on City Hall roof, okay?
Yep.
And guess what? When the wind doesn't blow, you still don't get any power.
That's right.
Jesus, Murphy. I mean, I don't understand. Sometimes these people are making decisions. They're spending billions of our dollars. They've screwed up totally light rail. They're going to spend another 300 and 500 billion, whatever the hell it is, on a new library. We got homeless people lying on the streets in Sussex. We can't seem to fix that. You know what? I got to calm down.
Yeah, calm down.
I got to calm down.
Now, I did want to...
Somewhere there's got to be some sanity.
Look, last week I asked you if you were in favor of a judicial inquiry. Not a lot of people were. The mayor, for example, said all it would be good for is to make lawyers rich. For example, that was one of his lines.
One of the
so
most
they voted. They didn't vote on it in the end at all. They maneuvered their way out of even
they
voting
just shut
on
off
it.
microphones,
Right?
didn't they?
Yeah. So what do you think of that?
Why don't they want a judicial inquiry? Don't talk to me about saving taxpayers' money. You're going to give people a free ride in December if we have a system working, which will cost us about $7 million, for God's sake.
Yeah.
We taxpayers are going to have to pay for free rides of people if it works. And they claim that they're saving taxpayers' money. Give me a break. We need it. We need to find something has gone amiss here. This is is it incompetence? Is it corruption? Is it just bad luck? I don't know. But I think we, the paying public, we deserve to know what the hell goes wrong. Because you know what? They plan to spend another few $1 billion on this damn lemon.
More than a few. Yeah, more than a few. All right. Well, you're worth $23 an hour this morning. You're worth $23 an hour this morning.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
Do you still think Andy Hayden and I are crazy?
Well, you're half right there. So I'll talk to you.
I did get, we had a former mayor that declared a half-ass Lowell Green
That's
Day.
right.
So.
That's right. Yep, Bob Shirelli declared it half-ass.
Oh, by the way,
Green Day.
You know what? Let's shut off all of the gas plants here. All we need is 1% of the power that we're burning, right?
Yes. I'll talk to you later.
On the air if we only had 1%.
We'll try our best. Talk to you later.
Good morning.
Bye-bye. That's Lowell Green, Rob Snow Show. Derek Fage from Rogers Television coming up next here on City News.
This hour of the Rob Snow Show.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Friday, October 15th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 16 degrees, Smiths Falls 18. And here's what's making news this hour. Federal cabinet ministers will be announced in 11 days. Prime Minister will unveil that cabinet on Tuesday, October 26th. Parliament is going to be recalled on November 22nd. That's a couple of weeks after you will be allowed to travel to the United States by car as long as you are fully vaccinated. Your QR code, so you can prove that, can be downloaded now if you were born between January and April. Slow rollout in Ontario will continue for the next couple of days, just depending on your birth month. Premier Doug Ford expected to have more to say on that coming up at 11 o'clock at Queen's Park. The price tag for the new main library has expanded well beyond what the projection was 5 years ago. The added cost being made up by the city, the library, and the federal government for Library and Archives Canada is 65% above the original estimate, even though 10% buffer was added in. We'll have more with the chair of the library board in Ottawa coming up shortly on the Rob Snow Show. City News Time, 9:32. I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The world is changing.
So keep up with Rob.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Welcoming back Derek Fage, host of Daytime Ottawa on Rogers Television. Good morning, Derek. Welcome back.
Good morning, Rob. Great to be back. Thank you for having me.
How did things go with the show this week? What were some of the highlights at Daytime Ottawa?
Great show this week. I think the most exciting thing is live music back on the show, although virtually. It was just nice to get it back, and I know so many people are just so eager to get back into venues and enjoying live music, and of course the artists themselves. So that was certainly exciting. One of our colleagues, Rebecca McMillan from Rogers Communications, our parent company, was on the show. They're doing a citywide food drive. So
Yes.
an update on that, which is running until October 24th. And, I'm a big sports fan, so Kyle Bukauskas from Sportsnet joined us, of course, talking about the Brady Tkachuk contract. Everyone's just buzzing about it.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Well, let's just jump right. Jump right into that. I mean, didn't you? My feeling was it just kind of. I can't talk on behalf of the whole city, but it seemed to just lift the spirits of everyone. I don't know. You're right.
Absolutely. I mean, Twitter was just lit up. Sens fans were losing their minds.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it was a win-win for both sides, quite frankly. I thought it would be a win as far as the Ottawa Senators were concerned if they could get him to a 6 to 8 year contract. They ended up with a 7, so that's a big win. And, $8.214 million a year. For a young man like Brady Tkachuk, I don't think he can complain.
No wonder he's dancing, right? No wonder he's dancing. $8.214 million a year, 22 years old. 22 years old, right?
And that sets a precedent, right? Because you've got some other young talent that are going to have to be paid in Josh Norris and Shane Pinto and, Tim Stützle coming up. You've got Jake Sanderson in a few years. So, you're paying this guy $8.214. Some of those guys I mentioned are probably going to have better point production than Brady Tkachuk. So we'll see what those contracts are going to look like down the road. But being at the game last night, it was electric. The buzz in the building, and then when Brady Tkachuk came out to Stone Cold Steve Austin's theme song from WWE. I mean, it was just so exciting. It was just amazing.
Yeah.
It was nice.
He really knows how to play the crowd, right?
Absolutely. I mean, and that's why he's getting paid money too, right? I mean, I mentioned the point production, but he brings more than just the point production, right? I mean, all the players love him. They were all so excited to see him back and signed again, but he's one of those guys that'll protect other players. He'll drop the gloves if necessary. If they don't make him the captain, and I'm not saying Shabbat doesn't deserve to be looked at as well, but I mean, he's the true leader in that locker room. They've got to make him the captain.
Yeah. Well, it's just for a long time, Sens fans have been suffering because they've seen players enter their prime and leave. And it's been depressing. It's been thoroughly depressing to see players like Mark Stone leave and to see players like Erik Karlsson. We may have had, if you're a Sens fan, the Senators may have actually gotten the best years out of Erik Karlsson. But at the time, it was like thoroughly depressing to see Erik Karlsson leave and go to, where did he go? San Jose, right?
Yeah, and we got pretty lucky, right, Rob?
Yeah.
I mean, when that trade happened, I was quite disappointed in it because you didn't get a star player necessarily in return right off the bat.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden San Jose fell apart and you end up getting their pick, which ends up, being Tim Stützle, and, you've got Josh Norris as part of the deal, and Tierney is part of the deal, and you've got, other picks that they've had that look very promising as far as some of the other young prospects that they got out of that deal. But, yeah, Ottawa got extremely lucky. And you're getting, Brady's prime years, right? He's going to be, about 28 years old. If you look at somebody like Mika Zibanejad, which was a terrible trade, but the Rangers just signed him to an 8-year contract at $8.5 million. That guy's going to be 36 years old at the end of the contract. I think the last 4 years they're going to regret signing a guy like that. So we've got a guy for.
But that's another player. Before Tkachuk, Pajot was the heart and soul kind of player for the Senators, and you hate to. And it's not just that they would leave; it's just like then the next day, or maybe even the same day, they would announce, "And I've signed a new long-term deal with the new team." And it was just be like, "Oh, if only we had owners who appreciated players." But now I don't. But this narrative, though, that the Senators are cheap or Melnyk is cheap, I don't know if you can really say that now. They're paying Brady Tkachuk like $8.2 million. They're paying Thomas Chabot $8 million. Right? They're paying Drake Batherson $5 million a year. They're paying Matt Murray, the goaltender, lots of money.
Yeah, 6.25, I think, for Murray. Yeah, I mean, I think they're doing it the right way. Certainly, I don't think this is going to change a lot of Sens fans' minds when it comes to Eugene Melnyk. But I think that, looking into the future, they know they've got these other guys to sign. So, that's why they're not going out and signing a big name free agent or making a huge trade, because they realize that down the road they're going to have to pay these other guys.
Yeah. So I want to ask you, outside of the, it was nice to win, kind of a sloppy game, but lots of offense. And anytime you can beat the Leafs, especially at Canadian Tire Center with all those silly Leaf fans filling our building, that's always a good time. But what was it like, the experience? I mean, it's been a long time since so many fans have been at Canadian Tire Center for a Senators game. Give us a sense of what were the protocols and that kind of thing, Derek?
Yeah, I mean, it was a little slow getting in. There's no doubt. I think they did the best they could under the circumstances.
Yeah.
I would suggest people that go to the game, you're probably going to want to, arrive about an hour early if you can, because, they also have, some things going on outside of the arena as well.
Okay.
It's nice to gather and have a pint with, your friends and family before the game starts and just get pumped up for it. And you've got a couple of spots where you have to, so first of all, you get to a spot where you have to show your vaccine, your 2 doses. You have to verify that. You have to show them ID at the same time, and then you move on. And then, of course, you have to go into the stadium. You have to go through security, of course, empty your pockets, and then finally show your ticket. So, be patient. They're doing the best they can. I thought they did. I thought they did a good job as far as the health and safety protocols. They had people going around, asking people to put on their masks here and there. I wouldn't say they were too.
And do you have to wear your mask? You wear your mask through the whole game, kind of thing? Or
yeah, they're asking people to. Obviously, if you're having a beverage, you can take your mask off. If you're having a bite to eat, that sort of thing. Looking around, I saw quite a few people without their masks on. Regardless of them eating or drinking.
Okay.
But I felt safe. I didn't have any concerns last night. And as I said, the stadium was electric. There were more black and red jerseys than there were blue and white, which was nice. And of course, at the end when that penalty happened, you saw Leafs fans get up and leave. So that was kind of fun, watching Leafs fans leave first over
beat the
Sens
traffic.
fans.
Yeah. What was it like getting out?
Really slow.
So that, all of these years later, that's still a thing. That's still a thing, right? Getting out of there is still challenging.
And you know what? Just be patient. Throw on some good music, or if you want to listen to some sports talk, try to find maybe a local sports talk or a podcast that's talking Sens, and enjoy the memory.
Attendance announced 15,159. Okay, last night, Canadian Tire Center. And so if you can have 15,000 people to an NHL game, does it make sense to have these capacity restrictions in place for other businesses, Derek?
Absolutely not, Rob.
No,
it makes no sense. I mean, I feel so bad for restaurants in particular when they see that 15,000 people can gather. You can have full capacity at a Leafs game and a Sens game, but you can't have full capacity at your restaurant. It just doesn't make any sense. As I said, at the game, they're walking around telling people to put their masks on, but they're kind of picking and choosing depending on, what the crowd looks like in that particular area. They don't want to be confrontational. But then you got a restaurant who can easily police themselves much better than 15,000 people at a stadium.
Yep.
They've got a capacity of, say, 250. Well, 250 compared to 15,000, I mean, my heart goes out to them. When that announcement was made, I can't imagine what restaurant owners were thinking at that time. I just don't understand, and gyms as well. And then theaters can have full capacity before restaurants. Again, it just doesn't make any sense, Rob. Yeah. They did a terrible job there and an injustice to small businesses.
Yeah, and then it's being stood up by cabinet ministers and just doing a disappearing act. I don't know. It's not a good look. Again, my Snow and 60 commentary on Shea today was this very. Is Doug Ford really in it for the little guy? Because sometimes it doesn't look like he's really in it for the little guy.
I don't think he ever was.
Right.
I mean, when he was getting together and talking about restrictions and so forth, he was meeting with the bloody CEO and president of Walmart Canada. He wasn't meeting with Joe Blow, who owns a restaurant down in the Byward Market. I mean, those are the people you should be meeting with. Don't worry about the Walmarts of the world. They're making record profits out of all of this during the pandemic. I mean, you should have had a circle of small business representatives the entire time and listening to them and having them be, your sounding board.
Lots of stuff at City Hall this week. In the end, let's not play the full clip. Play the fireworks at the end, though. This little exchange here forced the mayor to apologize to Councillor Deans. He cut off her mic when he was doing this motion maneuvering so that they wouldn't have to vote on having a judicial inquiry, but instead have this replacement motion and have the Auditor General look into light rail instead. And, I mean, people were going ballistic at this council meeting. Do you have the audio, David? Yeah, okay, play that for me, David.
Mr. Mayor, the mayor has ruled on this matter, so there is no opportunity for the clerk's office to weigh on.
The question was asked before the ruling.
Question was asked to the city clerk prior to the mayor intervening. I have every right as a member of this council to ask the city clerk to pronounce on this issue. Is it a reasonable substitution or?
Yeah, right. And that's where he cut her off. And that's where he cut her off. He just cut her right off, turned her microphone off. Yeah.
So disappointing.
Yeah. You're disappointed? Yeah. Yeah.
Really disappointed in Mayor Watson. I spoke about Jim last week. He was the first guest we had on the show in Daytime's Return, and I've always respected Jim, and we've always had a wonderful relationship. But I probably have never been as disappointed in Jim as when I heard that and saw that, and people had a right to be upset. This is democracy. Why not vote on it? I mean, one shouldn't supersede the other. And I agree with Diane Deans. Like, let's, the public apology was great it was great and all. But, why not have a motion for a judicial inquiry at the same time as the Auditor General?
I mean, you're going to win. If you're Jim, you're going to win that anyway. There's not going to be a judicial inquiry. So, but, exactly. At least you get everybody on the record. But I guess he, I don't know, almost too cute by half, and it came back to bite him in the end. So the news that the new library, main branch of the library is way over budget here.
Just slightly, Rob?
It's 73% over budget.
Yeah, we looked at about a 10% escalation, and it turns out to be 65, in excess of 65. Could they have foreseen this? I don't know, Rob. I mean, that's difficult to foresee, with this is going back to 2016. Did we foresee that a pandemic would come by and raise the prices exponentially of lumber costs and the difficulty of finding people in the trades, and it's incredibly hard work. There's no doubt, but it is physical labor, and I just don't understand. These are well-paid jobs we're talking about that people don't seem to be interested in taking, and people are just scrambling all over the place. And this is why it's going to cost so much more. I think people tend to think of, the amount of materials, the cost of materials going up. They don't realize that labor is going up exponentially in that industry as well, because they're having such a hard time. They're actually having to offer so much more money per hour for people to work.
But do you think, generally speaking, there is merit to this project?
I love the project.
Okay.
I just, the design is beautiful. I think we need a main library. I think the location of it is fantastic. I don't know what to say about the cost, Rob. I mean, can you just decide all of a sudden, okay,
you know what? It makes me wonder what's phase 2 costing us then for light rail. If this is the library, if this is a $190 million library, light rail is $4.6 billion. What is the increased cost of materials and labor on that project? That's what
is the average that they usually give, Rob? It's about 25%, right? They say, whenever you're doing a project, whether it's at home or a developer, you should add, a contingency of about 25%. Well, we know it's going to be well above 25%. I agree with you there. I mean, it's going to be ridiculous. And how much faith does anyone have in LRT right now? And
none.
We're still going ahead with phase 2, right? And then phase 3 is coming.
Yeah. All right, Derek. Have a great weekend, and we'll watch you next week on Daytime Ottawa. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much, Rob. Bye-bye.
Derek Fage, host of Daytime Ottawa. More on the library project with City Councillor for Orleans Ward and Chair of the Ottawa Public Library Board, Councillor Matt Luloff. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
I'm blessed to be married to someone who is a scientist and spent a lot of time following what was happening over in China ahead of time. So he did give us the heads up that this was coming. Not that we believed him right off the bat, but when it did happen very, very quickly, we were prepared. We had hand sanitizer and we were set up to not close our doors. So we locked the kitchen down at Wellington Street, but we left this kitchen open. We put in protocols immediately. We only allowed our very small crew of 4 or 5 people in at the time. No deliveries were allowed to come in or out of the building without, they just weren't allowed in and out of the building. So we met them at the loading dock and had very strict protocols in place right away. We had masks and hand sanitizer and the whole thing. So we're very lucky from that perspective, and we're able to, learn as we went as far as doing small, individually packed caterings, the frozen soup program, food for the Ottawa mission. So we didn't have to close the kitchen and then learn how to reopen it. We just were able to modify and shift as we needed to. Because of our partnership with the Ottawa mission, we were able to very quickly help support them. They were able to send us some product and some supplies, so it wasn't a burden on our business, and we were able to supply the staffing and the packaging to help produce that when they needed it the most. And we produced about 1,400 meals a week to complement their meals, and we started our soup program right away. We realized very quickly that there was a need in the community to get together and all work together, not only to support local, but also just to support all the people that were suddenly in a position of, being locked down and not being able to get out. So by starting that soup program, our community, our clients got online and started making donations for the soups. And we were able to produce the soups and get them back out to people that needed it. We're right now currently making 150 liters of soup per week, but we've made, I would say, 5,000 or 6,000, easily since the pandemic, probably more. I'd have to do the math but lots. I think everybody in the city has to be very aware of how blessed we were to have great weather this summer and people were able to get out and about, and that's going to shift. So we do have to be much more aware of who our most vulnerable is, and I really think we have to work together as groups. There are so many organizations in the city that are doing something and contributing and working together, and I think it doesn't matter who, but see what you can do to just step up and help them, whatever it is, whether it's driving or delivering food, or someone has extra zucchini in their garden, or if they can afford to donate some money to any of these organizations. I just think we all have to work together. We're smarter and wiser than we were the first time.
Fun
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News 101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
So at ottawa.citynews.ca, we're running with new Ottawa Central Library to cost $36 million more as city narrows builder search. That's $36 million more. It's just the city's share, just the city's share. Remember, there's the city, there's the library board itself, and then there's Library and Archives Canada, right? And then front page Citizen today, bill for new library soars by $141 million. Bill for new library. 73% hike, councillor says. And that councillor is Councillor Matt Luloff, the chair of the library board. Joins me this morning on City News. Good morning, councillor.
Good morning, Rob.
Yeah, nice to hear from you. Why the cost overruns? We haven't even put a shovel in the ground yet. Why so much?
Yes. So back in 2016, when the original project estimate was developed, I mean, that sounds like, feels like a lifetime ago. We were assuming quite liberally a 10% inflation rate year over year. Currently, construction inflation in Ottawa to midpoint construction for a project of this magnitude is more than 65%. So this 55% difference in inflation is the reason for our increased cost. It's not surprising to anyone who's watched Ottawa's superheated construction market, and this is compounded by the increase in material costs, the pressure that we've seen during the pandemic on supply chains, and the labor shortages that we're seeing due to the pandemic. But despite this increased cost, Rob, this project is still affordable. The remaining funds that are required...
So how will it be financed then?
Yes, of course. So the remaining funds that are required will be achieved by retiring debt and extending the debt from 20 years to 40 years. By doing this, we're taking advantage of the incredibly low interest rates and the debt servicing that's more in line with the life cycle of the building. And per square foot, this is still an extremely reasonable price compared to similar facilities in Canada. And I appreciate how you broke out, the cities, the ask to the city, the ask to the OPL. We're looking at $64 million on our side. So it's $28 million to the OPL, $36 million to the city in tax-supported debt. And on the OPL side, staff are recommending $16 million in our reserves and $12 million in development charges.
Councillor, there are those who have always questioned even the need for a new main branch of the Ottawa Library. I am not among them. I'm a big believer in a new branch for the main branch for the Ottawa Library. I've always been a proponent of the project, going back to its earliest days. But there are doubters. There are doubters, okay, who are going to certainly be naysayers this morning when they read something like this. Why is a project like this worth it for Ottawa?
Absolutely. So Adisoke, which is the name gifted to us by Indigenous partners, is the single largest social infrastructure investment in city history. And we know that libraries are critical to the health, well-being, vibrancy, and wealth of a community. And central libraries are must-see tourist destinations for the city that they call home. And on opening day, Adisoke is going to be the largest non-federal tourist destination in Ottawa and one of the most visited buildings in Canada. We're estimating more than 1.5 million visitors expected annually.
Wow.
That's a big boost to this area and a big boost to our city. Public consultations and Indigenous engagement have resulted in what you and I believe is a unique and striking design for a facility that is really befitting of a G7 capital. We have sold our current Central Library branch, and the two are totally incomparable. And the value of the library. They offer everyone free of charge spaces, tools, books, technologies, programs, and support that people need to learn and connect with others.
And the library, by the way, the library does not lose money. I looked up the latest financial reports for the library.
We do not.
Actually, for the last annual report that I read, ran a tiny surplus. The Ottawa Library did. It's about $250,000. I mean, it's not much, but it's a surplus, right? Where do you see that anymore? Okay, look, we only have a couple of minutes left. I have to ask you, just watching the city council this week, it seems as though the atmosphere, thank goodness you're on Zoom calls and not in the same room. You'd be at each other. It seems toxic. I don't know if are you on Twitter, Councillor Lula?
I'm not.
I mean, probably stay away from that. I mean, you are being called. You are a member of the Watson Club. Okay? You are a crony because you're a member, a crony. You are a crony. And you are a member of you are a Watson Club crony perpetrating a cover-up with light rail. This is the sort of language used by your council colleagues, Councillor Luloff. How do you respond to that?
Well, I mean, I tend not to engage in mudslinging and whatnot. I'm concerned with the state of the decorum that we have at City Hall. I think that it's fine for us to disagree with each other, but we have to do so in a respectful manner. I mean, we can disagree without being disagreeable. And I'm not talking about any specific councillors here. I get along very, very well with my colleagues. I have a great deal of respect for their service to our community, and that's really what council should be about. It should be about service, you know. And residents and councillors are rightfully outraged by the lack of safe and reliable service being provided by RTM and Alstrom. But we can't be driven to make decisions based on anger and outrage. And arguments, I believe, are made stronger, are not made stronger whatsoever by yelling or name calling. And that's why I tried to speak respectfully and evenly at council. I really do have great admiration and respect for everyone that's been duly elected by their constituents. And I really hope that we can get past this and get through this and get back to working together for the citizens of Ottawa.
Thank you for your time this morning, Councillor. All the best.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Rob. Bye-bye.
City Councillor Orleans Ward, Chair of the Library Board, Matt Luloff. Talkback Hour Friday free-for-all. Next on City News.
in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Friday, October 15th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 16 degrees, 18 in Smiths Falls. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. We have the date, just not the full detail. The U.S. will reopen its land border to vaccinated non-essential visitors on November 8th. Travelers will have to show proof of vaccination. Center for Disease Control and Prevention is currently working on the operational details, like what will constitute acceptable proof and which very limited exceptions might still be allowed. Vaccine approved by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration and World Health Organization will be accepted for international air travel. Officials expect the same will be the case for those crossing by land. What's still not clear is whether people who receive doses of different vaccines, a condition that impacts roughly 4 million Canadians, are they going to be considered fully vaccinated? City News Time, 9:02. All breaking news from Parliament Hill. We now have the date for the swearing in of a new cabinet later this month and the return of Parliament later next month. Here's City News Parliament Hill reporter Cormac McSweeney.
The swearing-in ceremony for the new cabinet is scheduled for October 26th, which is when we'll find out who stays, who goes, and who gets promoted to the Prime Minister's inner circle. It's expected there will be some demotions and a few fresh faces as Justin Trudeau recommits to having gender parity. The new cabinet will have to steer the country through the end of the pandemic and set us up for the economic recovery, but the House of Commons won't return until November 22nd, more than 2 months after the September election. It's not uncommon for Prime Ministers to delay the return of Parliament after a vote, but you can expect some criticism for this decision given we're still in a pandemic. In a written statement, the Prime Minister's office says Trudeau plans to talk by phone with opposition leaders early next week to discuss priorities. The statement says the PM will also ensure all members of Parliament are fully vaccinated before sitting in the House of Commons, an issue that the Bloc Québécois and the NDP have already said they support, but creates a conflict with the Conservatives. Cormac McSweeney, Parliament Hill.
City News Time, 10:03, Ottawa, Smiths Falls, the Valley, all under a special weather statement concerning the amount of rain we're getting. Not necessarily right now, but this evening and then into tomorrow. The wet weather expected to come in a couple of intense batches. Our meteorologist Jill Taylor explains the danger.
Especially if we get some isolated storms, that rain could really pool quite quickly. There could be some very localized flooding in spots, and of course riverbanks and any areas around streams or ponds. That ground will be very, very soft, so keep pets and children away.
Now, as for the Red-Black game tomorrow afternoon at home to Montreal, there shouldn't be a torrent, but there will still be showers at kickoff time, along with some very strong winds. That kickoff is scheduled for 4 o'clock. Ottawa police have laid additional charges now against 5 people in the ongoing investigation into the aftermath of the Panda game between Ottawa and Carleton. 3 men, a woman, and a youth, all between the ages of 17 and 21, are facing mischief charges now. Officers say they were able to locate these individuals with the public's help. It brings the total number of people who have been charged in the Panda game investigation now to 8. And British Columbia's 2019 public inquiry into money laundering is set to wrap up today. Reports have said the flow of millions of dollars in illegal cash linked to organized crime affected the province's real estate, luxury vehicle, and gaming sectors. This was called the Cullen Commission. It has heard testimony from 200 witnesses, including the former Premier Christy Clark, senior gaming investigators, as well as former police officers. I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
It's time to talk back
On the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
It's the Friday free-for-all, our favorite hour of the week around here. We don't come up with the topics. We leave that up to you. You can do the heavy lifting on Friday. We'll play along, do our best to keep up. Usually stick to things that have been in the news, but it's not a hard and fast rule. Maybe it's a news story, or maybe it's something that you think should be a news story, or whatever happens to be within reason. We're usually cool with it. Up first this morning, 750-1310, Steve. Ottawa. Steve, good morning.
Hey, Rob, how's it going?
It goes, sir.
All right,
without
well,
me, yeah.
I think I figured out a compromise for the whole vaccine passport thing.
Okay.
The Quebec workers and everyone.
Yeah.
They keep asking for proof of vaccination. I'm not sure why they're not asking for proof of immunity.
Okay.
Because maybe if they test them and see if they're immune, and they've been in contact with the virus for 20 months now.
Right.
So if they're immune, why would they need a vaccine? Can they just go about their day? So that's one thing.
All right.
Because it seems like our government's ignoring the science and only pushing the vaccine instead of accepting that there's actually herd immunity, and some people might actually be immune to it. But
all right, okay.
The other thing is the train. Now, I'm not a train expert.
Neither am I. Neither is RTG, apparently.
If I was going to build a train across Canada,
yes,
I wouldn't start in Saskatchewan.
Okay.
You understand what I mean? Like, I'm surprised you didn't start in Canada and go all the way to Orleans, or go in Orleans, or the South Bend. Why'd they start in the middle of the city?
There was an excellent in-depth piece from James Bagnall in the Ottawa Citizen last year or the year before that apparently the way we did it in Ottawa by kind of like starting in the middle, the way we did and putting a tunnel under the downtown core, they don't do that anywhere else in the world. Like usually what you do is if you're installing a new, say, public transit system based on light rail, you would start in a suburb and let the city kind of build out around the train.
Right.
You just don't start in the middle of the city the way we did. It's just one of the many head-scratching things, Steve. So, all right, Steve, have a good weekend, buddy. Good to hear from you. Yeah. Angelo is in Nepean. Good morning, Angelo.
Hi, Rob. How are you?
I'm hanging in there, buddy. Thank you. What's on your mind today?
So, the judiciary inquiry?
Judicial inquiry, yes.
Yes. Here we go. So Watson has no problem wasting billions of dollars, buckets of cash on a useless light rail system built by a criminally corrupt company like SNC-Lavalin, RTG, whatever you want to call them.
Right.
But he pretends it's a waste to throw a few drops of cash towards looking into his own incompetence and dirty deeds. I hope this is the last turn for him.
Right.
I think we learned three things from the last council meeting when they voted 14-9 against having an independent judicial investigation.
Okay.
Number one, we know Watson is afraid of all the corruption being exposed. That there's an independent investigation.
Right.
Number two, we know that there's at least 13 cowardly puppets that will do whatever Watson orders them to do at City Hall.
Holy cow, you're really tough on them, Angelo, today.
Oh,
Holy
yeah. Most of council, the integrity commissioner, the city clerk, the auditor general. Watson pulls the strings and they dance.
Okay. All right. Did you have anything else to say?
One thing. Don't cut me off, okay?
All right.
Because I know you don't like it when I say it. This whole corruption thing will come out eventually.
Right.
And Jim Watson's hiding it. And there was one counselor that had all the evidence, and that's Rick Shirelli. Jim Watson set up this political attack on him. I'm telling you, it'll come out one day.
Come on, Angelo. Come on. Now you're just spinning. You too. You're just spinning crazy stuff now. There's a lot of stuff I disagree with what Angelo said. That Jim Watson knows there's corruption and he's covering up. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I would hate to think that. I don't believe that. But I will say that the city council didn't distinguish itself this week. That watching what the events unfold at city council this week, it was embarrassing to watch that. It's embarrassing when the mayor and his council allies are accused of a cover-up. It's embarrassing when they're accused of stifling debate, destroying democracy. It's never good when you have the mayor accused of silencing women. And it's never a good thing when the mayor has to issue an apology to one of his council colleagues. And all of that happened this week. And I can't remember the last time the mayor apologized for anything. I don't even know if he's ever issued a public apology before. And by the sounds of it, his apology wasn't even accepted anyway. It's like, take your apology and stick it you-know-where. 750-1310. Not council's finest moment this week when the mayor muted the microphone of Councillor Deans just as the council was, getting into the whole business of the judicial inquiry into light rail. We were doing the play-by-play of all of that. Right here on the Rob Snow Show. What would council do? What tricks did the mayor have up his sleeve? He's always thinking ahead, okay? They have to understand, you're dealing with a veteran political animal in Jim Watson. Someone with total command of his city council. And there is a golden rule. When you're the mayor of Ottawa, you don't sit in the big chair and have a vote on something unless you know you have the votes. If you're the mayor, that's the golden rule. You don't lose a vote. If you think you're going to lose the vote, you don't have the vote. Okay? So I wasn't shocked at all by the time the council meeting rolled around on Wednesday that the mayor had already game planned it all out in order to end any hope of having a judicial inquiry into the light rail affair. And he corralled, Glenn Gower, his council ally, and had him bring forward this motion on having the Auditor General do an investigation into this. I mean, it's a disaster. And that was the replacement motion. And the mayor maneuvered things in such a way that he simply turfed Councillor McKenney's motion and replaced it with his own motion. So that in the end, there was never even a vote on whether to have a judicial inquiry. Nobody on the record. They never had a vote on that. And to me, it's not a good look on these councillors. I would suggest that after them, some of them might want to begin to contemplate their careers post-municipal politics after what happened this week, and I am serious. And here's another thing I would add on this Friday free-for-all while I wait for some calls. If you, someone out there, if you have ever considered running for city council against one of these longtime incumbents, this upcoming municipal election might be a good time to take your shot. There are some down there who are far past their best before dates. And now you have a ready-made issue that you can hammer them away on. Look at light rail. Look at the mess that you have made of public transit in this city, and you think you deserve to be reelected? If I'm campaigning against someone in the next municipal election, I'm not. But if I was plotting a run for city council, I'm not. That's the centerpiece of my pitch to voters. My opponent voted for this shoddy system. And not only raised my taxes every year, raised my transit fares every year, and then the whole system came crashing down. My opponent voted for a cover-up. It's politics, right? Take no prisoners. One of the core city services, one of the most important city services, one of the most expensive city services, nothing but a shambles on my opponent's watch. An irredeemable mess. And my opponent has done nothing but ride the mayor's coattails during his entire time at City Hall. I mean, it writes itself, okay? It writes itself. And no, I'm not for hire. The events of the last month, 26 days without light rail. Can you imagine? I think that in and of itself should have a lot of city councilors thinking long and hard about their future as city councilors. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
As Desjardins agents,
I started, as I said, at Lester's Barber Shop, and it was kind of, it
was one of those things that it was just an opportune time for me to get into it, just because he had decided that he was going to retire after the fire, and then the opportunity presented itself that I could open my own shop. And so I went from a 150 square foot space on St. Patrick Street to a 600 square foot space just on Beechwood to now here, and I'm in a 1,400 square foot space now. And I don't know, it's been an interesting journey because, you know, you think that you're just going to be just you or a really small space, and then all of a sudden, you know, you've got 10 other people working for you, you're in a much bigger space, and even incorporating the boutique. Last March, when all of this started, I mean, we closed down a little bit earlier than everybody else, and I'm going to say, you know, being honest, part of it was social pressure. We shut down before everybody else did, and I'm watching all these other salons, you know, just be really responsible and saying we don't want to be a part of the process. So we got ahead of it and closed, and then, you know, the week later, the government's like, everybody's shutting down. And so it was a little nerve-wracking. I guess the first step of us, you know, trying to innovate and just keep moving forward was when the salon is closed, right? It's like, what do you do? Our whole industry is based on being with people, cutting their hair, providing a service. You have to be people together to do that. You can't do that remotely at all. So one of the first things that I saw in our industry, what people were trying to do is they were selling their hair products that they had. And luckily, I've had a website that always had a web store in the back. I just never used it. So as soon as I saw that people were doing that, I was like, okay, if this is what we're going to do, I'm going to load up all my stuff. And so that worked out really, really well. And then from there, I managed to find a place that was like a wholesale website that allowed you to have net 60 days. So you don't have to, you can order all the stuff. You don't have to prepay any of it. There's free returns, all that. So that made it really easy for me to bring in other products and start trying to sell it. And so I went from selling hair products to shave products to bath and body products to a little bit of clothing and jewelry, and now it's just morphed into this whole, like, I want to make it a whole legit boutique. And by December of last year, I decided that this is a full-fledged thing, and we're going to separate it. It's its own company. So it's really finding an opportunity that's there and running with it. So it's been really fun. Our clients are loving it. Our clients that have been here for a long time, they love it.
Stabbed to death. Has been stabbed to death. That a man has been arrested on suspicion of murder. Walked in, the early reports are that the suspect walked into the MP's constituency office in a place called Lay-on-Sea and stabbed the MP to death, Sir David Amos, the MP. More details coming up during our 10:30 newscast. That's just into us here at City News. This is the Friday free-for-all. It's been a very busy news week. Paul at 750-1310, you're on City News. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob.
Hi.
Happy Friday to you.
Same to you, Paul. Thank you.
I had two issues I would have liked to mention on air.
Sure.
But first of all, while I was listening to you, your best before date call for replacements, that's the best thing I've ever heard you say. It made me laugh. It was incredible.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Thank you, Paul. Thank you.
But anyways, regarding the library,
yes,
I'm just curious to know what is the percentage of municipal taxpayers benefit from building this versus the national taxpayers?
Well, I don't really understand the nature of your question and whether it could even be broken down like that. You know, aren't we lucky enough to live in the nation's capital that not only would we have a new main branch of the Ottawa Library, but we would also be able to take advantage of a brand new headquarters for the Library and Archives Canada and all the work that could be done there?
Yeah,
right.
But wouldn't it also? Well, I'm just curious to know if it wouldn't have been feasible to have, like, the Archives Canada have their building with the national taxpayer dollars building that.
Well, yeah, it's being cost shared though. It's being cost shared.
And have
a national library in the old building on the main street.
But we would not even be able to build a building like this if we weren't cost-sharing it with Library and Archives Canada, sir. That's really one of the few things that made it feasible.
Yeah, I'm just wondering which taxpayers getting their best bang for
getting
the
the best bang for the buck. Oh, okay, I appreciate that. Yeah, sure.
Okay,
sure.
and then the second one was the second issue, if you'll permit me, was regarding the resources allocated to ship all the water up north in Iqaluit.
Yes.
I'd like to know if those resources also included a plan for the gathering and recycling of all those plastic bottles.
Well, maybe, but I mean, look, you have an entire town's water supply, 7,700 people. The entire town has no water, sir, no drinkable water.
Right, and
at this point, I appreciate what you're saying, Paul. I mean, who's going to pick up all the plastic bottles and will they be recycled? We can think about that another day. People need drinking water right now, Paul. A town of almost 8,000 has no drinking water.
Right.
Like a significant.
When they're going back and forth, could they bring back some?
I'm sure they'll figure it out, Paul. But first, they have to figure out, how did gasoline get into their water supply?
Well, we could get into the global warming, and then you're going to go and dump a whole bunch of plastic there. Like they're saying some people are saying the reason that the gas has been seeped into the water is because of
the permafrost is melting and it's cracking the pipes. Yeah, I heard that this morning on the radio. Yeah.
So I'm saying, okay, fine. Is this going to be a band-aid solution? I'm sorry.
I understand, Paul. I understand. My concern right now is potable water for that community, not necessarily picking up the plastic bottles. I'm sure they'll figure out a plan for that. Leo. Good morning. You're on City News, Leo.
Hi, Rob. Good morning. I know it's been a long week.
Yeah, but, busy. It's good to be busy.
Yeah. Well, I'm calling because this LRT situation is really, bothering me a lot because... this is a situation that, it doesn't look like it's going to get resolved anytime soon. And can you imagine if we didn't have this pandemic right now and we didn't even have a light rail system running at all?
Oh, yeah.
And we had high ridership and everything?
Sure.
What would we do?
It'd be a disaster. It'd be a complete disaster.
It'd be 5 times worse than
the
this.
entire bus system would collapse, sir. OC Transfer would collapse. Yeah.
The thing is,
people would be stranded.
This is an awful lot of money spent.
Oh, yes.
And, somebody's got to be accountable for this. There's no way you can get away with this and just brush away like if it was water,
No, we'll see what happens. The Auditor General will investigate, but the Auditor General cannot investigate elected representatives.
But, this could go as far as criminal charges and stuff like that down the road.
We'll see what happens with it.
Anyways, I'm very disappointed in the council and disappointed in the mayor.
I think you have every right to be.
Disappointed in a lot of people.
Yep, you have every right to be, sir. You have every right to be. And it's not, this is just the beginning of, it's only a 12-kilometer line.
Exactly, and so a lot of people, they don't think about this, but there's a lot of their tax dollars going into this mess,
Oh, big time.
Wasted money, completely wasted money.
Yeah, thank you, Leo. Thank you. Yeah, I share your frustration, sir. A couple of lines there, 750-1310, just, on the main branch of the library. I've always been a big supporter of this project from its earlier days, even though, it puts me at odds with people like Lowell Green, puts me at odds with my own listeners who've never seen the value in that project. I get that. We're never going to agree on everything. What a boring world it would be if we all agreed on everything all the time. The best laid plans go awry sometimes. The way the city had actually set this up, I thought it was a real score for the city. Maybe we should count our lucky stars that it's not going to cost even more. $140 million more than originally estimated. Basically over budget. But we need a new branch for the Ottawa Library downtown. The old one, not up to the job anymore. not accessible for people with mobility issues. And the city engineered this to its favor. It sold the old library near Metcalfe Street for mega bucks. The idea being, take that money, the proceeds, put it into the new building. Land prices downtown weren't really an issue because where this library is going, the city already owned the land. And then they swung an agreement with the federal government, Library and Archives, to cost share a new complex. I mean, that's about as good as it was ever going to get when it comes to financing a new library. But it's inflation in building materials is apparently the big cost driver. And I mean, inflation is no state secret, right? It's no state secret. My question is, okay, if it's caused a 73% increase in the cost of building a library, what's it meant for the cost of building a $4.6 billion second phase of light rail? I'd like somebody to answer that question. Do an inquiry on that. Ask the city staff that. I'd love to know what that figure is now. Richard in Ottawa. Richard.
Hey there.
Hi, Richard.
So I just want to talk about the healthcare system and the mandatory vaccinations.
Yes, sir. That was a hot issue yesterday. Yep.
Yeah. So this one's hitting real close to home because I have a family member who's only like less than a year out from retiring. They got the first vaccine, but had a severe allergic reaction to it to the point where they were in the hospital.
Oh, really? Okay.
And,
all right.
and now her bosses are telling her, well, you have to get the second one or you're going to be fired.
Really? Where is this? Here in Ottawa? Here in Ottawa?
Here in Ottawa.
Oh, yeah.
And she's got no choice. They've backed her into a corner. But
right.
She's tried talking to lawyers. She's tried talking to other doctors. She's tried getting like an allergy test kind of thing for it.
Yeah.
No one will talk to her or back her up because she's known 3 other doctors within her hospital alone who's spoken out about how the COVID vaccine really wasn't tested properly, really doesn't function like it should, and shouldn't be made mandatory, and they were fired, and they lost their licenses. And she knows 4 other nurses that were in her hospital as well, back whenever they first came out with them, and 2 of them are in wheelchairs, one of them probably for the rest of her life.
Really?
One of them died, and the other one lost her sanity. She no longer can remember any of her schooling.
Now, Richard, I don't know anybody who's had any of those problems that you have mentioned. I don't know anybody who's ended up in a wheelchair. I don't know anybody who has died. I don't know anybody who's had a severe allergic reaction. And yet, miraculously, or maybe, Richard, more accurately, suspiciously, you happen to know people who have suffered all of those things. I don't believe you. Halftime, Rob Snow Show, City News.
If you like your news.
1310 AM.
It's Friday, October 15th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 16 degrees, Smiths Falls 18. And here's what's making news this hour. The U.S. will open its land border to vaccinated non-essential visitors on November 8th. What is still not clear is whether people who receive doses of different vaccines would be considered fully vaccinated. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau now preparing to unveil the roster of cabinet ministers. That will happen on October 26th. Then Parliament is going to be recalled on November 22nd. The province has 496 new cases of COVID-19, along with 2 more deaths. 40 of the cases are in Ottawa, 12 in Eastern Ontario, 1 new case in Renfrew, but no new cases today in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark. British Conservative MP David Amos has died after being stabbed today. It happened during a meeting with constituents at a church in eastern England in his riding. Essex police were called to reports of the stabbing just after noon today, local time. It said a man was arrested and a knife recovered. Russia's defense ministry says a Russian warship prevented a U.S. Navy destroyer from what it described as an attempt to intrude on Russian territorial waters in the Sea of Japan. Ministry says the U.S. destroyer was forced out of the area near Russian waters that were declared off limits to shipping due to artillery drills. City News Time, 10:32. I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
It's time to talk back.
On the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
Friday free-for-all. Wide open on topics today. I have some topics, but I've already had my rant. It was very cathartic, so I'm pretty much done for the week. Robert, North Gore, you're on City News. Robert.
Oh, good morning. Can I have my rant now?
You go rant away, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm considering what's going on in council now is a result of pure arrogance. I've got another thing that's adding to the top of it. It's I've been trying to get a hold of my councillor, Scott Moffat, and the mayor for some local issues here. I contacted them in July. I retried again in August, not getting any responses at all. I also sent an online form to the ombudsman, and still no response. As far as I'm concerned, public servants have a duty to respond. We pay their salary, we pay their benefits, and to just ignore constituents, I think it's just a sign of what's going on.
Why do you think you're being ignored?
I have no idea. It's just we've become maybe a nuisance to answer us.
Okay. Are you a known nuisance maker, Robert?
I don't think so. I'm looking to get a sidewalk put in. We've got a lot of growth out here.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm looking out for the safety of the residents here. It's not a.
I'm just wondering if Scott Moffat gets your email. He's saying, "Oh, there's that Robert again."
It's probably the second time in 14 years I've.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. All right. Right.
And
okay.
I've done,
have you called his office? Have you talked to his staff? Anything like that?
Yes, I said, can I expect a phone call back? Oh yeah, no problem. Like I said, no return call. I've never received anything from the mayor's office saying we'll get back to you or anything. It's just been pure radio silence. Nothing.
Radio silence. Okay.
So I don't know. Like most places, you call and. They'll tell you within a day or two they'll get back to you, or they'll actually have an answer. But to completely ignore you, like I said, we pay their salary, right?
Absolutely, sir. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, Robert. Thank you. Feel better?
No.
Okay. I'm sorry about that. You'll feel better if you're actually talking to Scott Moffat instead of me, right?
Well, when the sidewalk is, then I'll be happy.
All right. Thank you. Yeah. Good luck. Godspeed. Barry in Ottawa. Barry, you're on City News.
Good morning, Rob.
Yes, Barry.
It's the Friday rant time.
Go ahead. Rant away, yeah.
Yes, my topic was the latest exhibition of liberal oligarchs that we have to deal with here in Ottawa.
Okay.
Jim Watson and his latest display makes me wonder if he's following a manual from the Trudeau government.
Okay. How so, Harry? How so?
Well, just Trudeau dragging his butt to bring Parliament back when the pandemic's on, and you know, the cutting off of Diane Deans and Jim Watson doing his own thing there without any regard for the council or anybody else's opinions.
Yep.
I almost think that what you were mentioning about the election and, you know, councillors that shouldn't even be voted for or whatever next election that should.
There's a few of them that don't deserve to be reelected.
Yeah, and somebody should come out with a list of all the Watson followers so we know how to properly clean house in the different wards.
Well, I mean, it's not hard to do. What you do is you can name the council. You can probably name them, Barry. Let's do it together here. Who's not in the so-called Watson Club? You know, right? Let's go through it here. Just think about downtown, right? You have not members of the Watson Club. Who do you have? Catherine McKenney, right?
Yeah.
Somerset Ward. You have Sean Menard, most certainly. He's like the leader of the opposition down there. Capital Ward. So there's two. A little further to the east, you have Rito Vanier. Fleury, okay, he's not part of the Watson Club. A little bit to the west, you have Kitchissippi Ward. That's Jeff Leeper, right? And he's not part of the Watson Club. So there's
also
4. Okay, let me finish here. Okay, I'm on a bit of a roll here. Who else? Diane Deans, right? What's that? Gloucester Southgate Ward, right? She's not in the Watson Club. So that's 5. Carol Ann Meehan, most of the time is not with the mayor, most of the time. Rick Shirelli's really not with anyone, but he's definitely not with Jim Watson, right? So he's persona non grata anyway, so there's a half a dozen. I'm probably missing 1 or 2 more. Teresa Kavanaugh, Bay Ward, good one, yeah. David, yeah. What's his name? King. Up in Rockcliffe, Rito Rockcliffe Ward, Overbrook, Rockcliffe. I mean, it's a very diverse ward, right? Councillor King. You know, and everybody else is a member of the Watson Club, basically, right? You have that core opposition, and then you have everybody else who votes with Jim Watson.
Is that close to half of the council, Rob?
No, it's not even close to that. There's 24 people on the council, right?
Yeah, well, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
How many? Is it a third or not close to a half?
Yeah, 2/3 of the council. He usually commands 2/3 of the council. But if you're the mayor, I mean, that's your job, is to move forward with your agenda. You're the only person around the council table who is elected citywide.
Well, right? I can't speak as to, I don't remember Bob Shirelli's record when he was mayor, but I hope we have some fresh new faces running for mayor, and it'd be nice to see somebody new other than a liberal that served under Dalton McGuinty, because they all seem to follow the same path.
Yeah.
And I use the word oligarch because they seem to want to dominate the power scene and have the final word, and just like Trudeau with the federal government.
Okay. Well, I mean, I guess, Barry, you could also say, you know, Mayor Jim Watson won the election. He won it in a landslide, and it's up to him to move the city forward with his agenda. And if people don't like it, there's an election next year, about a year from now. And if Jim Watson runs, his record will be there for all to see. And people will either re-elect him again or they'll toss him out on his keister. Burritts Rapids. Bill, you're on City News.
Hi, Rob. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Appreciate the call, sir. What has prompted the call today?
I'm talking a little bit about LRT. It's just a comparison. In early September, there was a train derailment in Prescott. 2 freight trains collided, trains on their sides.
I remember it. Yep. I remember the news report about it, yes.
But I'm sure that train line is up and running by now.
It was up and running like 2 days later. I think it was up and running, right?
And the damage was a lot worse than our little, than what happened here in town.
Yeah, but I guess, the issue is, I'm sure whatever the railway it was, I don't know if it was CN or CP Rail, but whatever railway it was, they just have another train that's ready to go and put it on the tracks, right?
No,
we don't.
But
we
also
don't.
the track
right?
and everything was ripped up too.
Well, okay. I didn't. Yeah, all right.
But just a comparison, like it's a lot.
Yeah, it's quite something that you're right. You're right that a freight railway can be, have a derailment and be down for 2-3 days. But here we're 26 days. Nobody has the foggiest idea. Now I'm sorry, I'm getting a bit of an echo here. The city manager did say, Steve Canalacco said this week, we may have a date for a resumption of service from RTM by the end of the week. That's what he said at the city council meeting this week, right?
And I want a quick thing on Iqaluit there.
Yeah.
I think it was Leo was asking about the recycling. Everything in Iqaluit goes to the dump, and it's probably burnt.
Okay.
That dump is called Dumpcano. A few years ago, it burnt for 3 months.
Oh, okay.
But that didn't make the news.
Okay.
Just like they had a sewage problem a few years ago. 32 days of sewage went into the Arctic Ocean.
No.
Nobody said anything about that either. So they do definitely have some problems going on there.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Gasoline in the water supply.
Yeah. Like they definitely have some issues to clean up there.
Sounds like it. Okay, Bill, thank you. Thank you for your call. There might be some news on light rail today. The news being, okay, this is the date that RTM has given us. This is when they think light rail will be back up and running. But then, remember, they have to do their own checks at City Hall, and then they have to have it verified by the independent firm that they hired as well to do the safety review. TCI or something like that firm is called, or TRI or something. I can't remember. Blackburn Hamlet. Chris, you're on City News.
Hi there, Rob.
Hi.
I enjoyed this segment with Lowell today because he touched on something that I've been thinking about for many months now, I guess over a year. And he talked about the public trust being undermined with these policies that don't make sense. And, of course, the one we're talking about is like this full stadiums versus restaurants. And I've been thinking during the pandemic how, like, now we're at the point where we're trying to get people vaccinated. I think that the vaccine hesitancy is partly caused by these policies that, for the last year and a half often don't make sense. For example, opening up big box stores but not letting the small businesses stay open. We allow unvaccinated people to be on public transit, but they can't go into restaurants.
Yeah.
They closed ski hills and golf courses in Ontario. It didn't make any sense to many people.
No.
Even last Christmas, they had that Christmas light show in Canada where you stay in your car and look at the lights, and that was canceled. It's like, why?
Why? Yeah.
While people here in Orleans, close to where I live, were lined up down the street going down Taffy Lane, looking at Christmas lights.
Yeah.
So you add all these things up, and it's, it adds to the public mistrust. And I think that's, part of, the whole vaccine hesitancy thing is it's been just a year and a half of policies that are kind of out of whack.
Out of whack, inconsistent.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And in some cases, nonsensical.
Yeah. I did run for city council twice, and I'm kind of glad wasn't successful because I wouldn't want to be part of that mess right now.
Okay. Yeah. All right, Chris. You should maybe give it another try.
I'll think about it.
Okay. Bye-bye. Yeah. Carlton Place. Scott, you're on City News.
Hi. Good morning. How are you?
I'm great, sir. Thank you. Go ahead.
Great. Listen, I'm just calling. I don't know if you got a lot of other calls about this CRB.
What about it?
I'm supposed to be receiving this caregiving benefit to help my mother out.
Okay.
And it's been nothing but a hassle. I haven't been able to get paid out since July. They keep requesting different paperwork all the time, and I keep giving them all the paperwork they need.
Yeah.
But it's getting ridiculous.
Oh, really? Okay. I don't know too much about it. I haven't really taken many calls about it, Scott. In fact, you're the first. So, yeah, I don't know. I would be curious to know what's it like when you call Service Canada?
Well, it's Service Canada sends me to the CRB because I'm not eligible for regular EI benefits.
Oh, I see.
So, and I went to my MP,
Yes.
Because this was taking so much time.
Yeah.
And then I got heck for going to my MP, so they kind of punished me for doing that.
Oh.
And it's...
Who gave you heck?
Yeah. CRB people. The lady from Validations said I shouldn't have gotten my MP, but I had no choice, sir, because it's just been a
so you feel like you're getting the runaround. You're getting the runaround. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm supposed to be caring for my 80-year-old mother.
Right.
And helping her out.
Right.
And this is just causing her stress and myself stress.
Yes.
And I've got nothing wrong not to be getting this benefit.
Who's your MP?
Scott Reed.
Scott Reed. Okay. All right. Was he helpful at all, or?
They were at the beginning.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
And, but they've done all they can. They've even talked to the minister at CRB, or whatever that minister is for it.
Right.
And it just doesn't seem to be getting resolved.
And this has been going on since July, you say?
Yeah.
And I'm not familiar with the benefit. What is the benefit to you?
Well, they got three of them. You got your regular CRB.
Yeah.
Then you have a sickness benefit.
Right.
Then you have a benefit to help seniors.
Okay.
With underlying conditions.
And what it is, a few extra $100 a month or something like that, is it?
No, you get $1,600 a month.
Oh, $1,600 a month. Okay. So that's a substantial amount of money. Yes. Yes.
Yes, it's $900. It's $450 a week.
$450 a week. Okay. All right.
So, and then I'm on my own prescriptions. But the point is, sir, is it's just mentally, physically draining.
I bet.
If I've called them once, I've called them 1,000 times. And, yeah, so I didn't think I was going to get any real solutions from you. I just wondered if other people were going through the same problem that I'm going through and how you resolve it.
Well, you have made the appeal on this show, sir, and that's about the best that we can do. We'll see if other people are in the same circumstance or have had the same experience, and we'll see what happens with it. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
I appreciate you taking the time to talk.
Thank you, Scott. Good luck, sir. Good luck. Yeah. Bye-bye. Be right back with a few more phone calls here. It's Talk Back Hour. Still some time left. This is City News.
The food cupboard started about 25 years ago. Again, it was a very small operation in the basement of a church. And we have been expanding to the point where we needed to have a new facility. So in discussion with the city of Ottawa, and Jan Harder, the local representative here, we came to this location, which is about 2,000 square feet, located in the Walter Baker Center. We've been here for about 2 years, and it is much better. It gives us a much broader opportunity to serve our clients better. It's a fairly affluent community in Barrhaven, so you wouldn't think that people would really need to have a food bank or a food cupboard. But people sometimes have a temporary loss of their job, maybe new immigrants or refugees to the community. Maybe there's been an injury in the family or something like a pandemic that causes people to run short of food during their monthly requirements. So we offer any clients who come and live in our catchment area the opportunity to pick up an order of food every 3 or 4 weeks. The need varies from time to time. We have expanded our offering to include quite a few perishables, eggs, milk, cheese, yogurt, vegetables, fruit. But people, I think, know that we need cans of beans and stuff as well, too. One thing that we're consistently short of sometimes is personal hygiene products. You go to the grocery store, you buy your toothpaste and you buy your deodorant and shampoo there. People don't automatically think that to donate those kinds of things to a food cupboard. So we end up buying quite a few of those things from time to time. The pandemic has affected us like it has everybody. Initially, we had to stop the grocery store food donations so that we didn't have any risk of contamination and to have a significant number of volunteer work to be done in our facility. We have a storefront, so it's like a mini grocery store where you take a cart and you go around and pick out the things that you want. That doesn't work during the pandemic to maintain social distancing and so on. So what we have now is our clients can come in one at a time, they make an appointment. They stand behind a line, and they direct our volunteer to, I'd like Kellogg's cornflakes rather than Harvest Crunch, to pick the food that they would like off the shelves according to the allocation, depending on the size of their family. And then they take it out, load it into their vehicle or whatever, bring back the cart, we disinfect everything, and prepare for the next client. We are very blessed here in Barrhaven. We're a totally volunteer organization. So if you give a dollar to us, it goes to purchasing food or to provide some service to our clients.
Continues.
Still ahead, final hour of the program. Doug Ford has a news conference scheduled for 11 o'clock. It's about QR codes, digital vaccine passports, the code you need for your phone. That's coming up. It's scheduled for 11 o'clock. We'll carry it when it begins. Sometimes these things are delayed, but when it starts, hopefully it starts on time. We'll take it. Probably lots of questions about easing restrictions. And, it's all over the news media that some announcement is coming next week. And then probably 2 weeks from now, fingers crossed, restrictions will be relaxed for hard-hit small business owners, particularly in the hospitality industry. So that's still ahead. Steve Warren on everything that happened with the Senators yesterday. What a day yesterday to be a Senators fan. Steve is host of the Sens Nation podcast and the Steve Warren Project, so that's 11:15, and then we'll wrap up the program with some more Ontario politics and Queen's Park Week in Review, our weekly discussion with our MPPs. Dave, downtown. Good morning, Dave.
Good morning. I was listening to an earlier caller, I think it might have been Angelo, and he was a bit over the top in sort of the conspiracy kind of thing.
Yes.
But something inside of what he was saying sort of struck me. And when I had watched the original clip or video of when Jim Watson cut off Diane Deans, it brought to mind when Jody Wilson-Raybould was stifled by Justin Trudeau.
Okay.
And
a lot of people are making those parallels this week. It's interesting.
Yeah, but it just sort of struck me as, well, if you have nothing to hide and there would be nothing wrong with an investigation, why not go ahead with it? And then everybody will think that you're everything's fine and dandy, that you did nothing wrong. But it's almost like when things like that are done, it's almost like you're doing it almost out of fear that you think that somebody's perhaps, if they're allowed to continue, they're going to lead a situation into an area where you don't want to go, and so you're going to do your best to try and cut it off. That's just kind of the feeling that why I drew the parallel there, that, obviously it makes people think that there's something going on in behind.
Yeah, it wasn't even that... the motion to have a judicial inquiry was never going to go anywhere just because of the nature of the city council and how it's made up and, the alliances that have been created down there.
Oh, it wasn't going to happen. It's
but it's the idea that you wouldn't even have the vote is insulting to a lot of people, me included.
Yes, and also if people, look a little deeper, some of them are going to put the common denominator in there, SNC Lavalin.
Sure.
In both situations, although they're only connected with phase 2, but still, you can't help but people being suspicious of, what is really going on and why can't we get answers.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Thank you. Okay. Just getting word that the Doug Ford News Conference is delayed until 11:15, so we're going to kind of flip things around and we'll do Steve Warren at 11 o'clock. Steve Warren on sports and the Senators at 11 o'clock on the Rob Snow Show on Light Rail. Ian, you're on City News. Ian.
Good morning.
Morning.
So, going back to the more you pay, for the most part, the more you get. I would definitely attribute a portion of that to the CN comparison or the CP comparison when the rail went down. Yeah. They've got a lot of money on the line. It's not a public service. It's a service that really has to keep running. So I think there's a bit of a differentiator there.
Okay.
But this light rail fiasco really reminds me a lot of Tim Hortons. You, me, and Tim Hortons. Tim Hortons has been losing money for the last couple years now. They've broadcast it. We saw them revamp the drive-thrus, revamp this, put some fresh eggs. What kind of eggs were they using before that? We're only using fresh eggs now. But anyways, we still can't seem to get Tim Hortons the money they want because now they're not even staying open. Now, maybe I'm crazy, but a number of years ago when I was doing a lot of traveling for work up north out west, there were Burger King locations, Dairy Queen locations, where again, much like the $23 an hour you were discussing earlier in the program today, they've had to suck it up and offer more money per hour. So again, if we're that worried about sales, screw those bright drive-throughs that I can't even see at 3 o'clock in the morning when I go in. Screw all these revamps and this little petty stuff. And why can't we just use, again, some common sense, a flour that not everybody has, and pay these people appropriately, train them appropriately so my food gets made right, and give them some incentive to want to come into work. And then, hey, what do you know? Tim Hortons can stay open longer now, and they can start making more revenue. Am I crazy, or is that kind of common sense?
You're making some sense. You do sound a little on the cranky side today.
Yeah,
did they put sugar in your coffee or something? Or,
yes, they did, but they forgot to stir it. So again, I don't really give a
Okay. We're going to end it right there. Oh, let's take this call to end the week. Overbrook, Erica. Good morning, Erica.
Oh, good morning. Hi.
Go ahead.
TGIS, thank goodness.
Yes. And it was a short week, too. That's the thing. It was only a 4-day week for me.
It seems like there was more happening this week than any other week, and it was a short week.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about the 11th out of 12 healthcare system that we have here in Canada. I have lost another doctor yet again to New Zealand, of all places. This is my last doctor ran away to Australia.
Wow.
This is the second doctor in 6 years that I have lost.
Well, maybe not. Maybe it's not the doctors. Maybe it's you, Erica.
No, just dropped it. Well, okay.
It's not even like they're moving to Toronto. They're moving to the other side of the world to get away from you, Erica.
I know. Okay, so where in the profession does it say that you can leave your entire practice high and dry and leave your patients without a doctor to take care of them once you've left?
Okay.
I mean, patients need their reports read, they need their prescriptions renewed, they need consults done, diagnostics, lab work done. We're all high and dry. I've been on the phone I just phoned today and found out at the 1-800 number that he didn't even deregister me as his patient.
Oh, okay.
So I have to deregister myself as a patient and wait 10 to 14 days for a mail out saying, yes, you no longer have a doctor, and then I can reapply. I was on the line yesterday. I called 20 doctors.
Oh, my God.
One called me back and said, no, I'm not taking patients. One, I don't qualify because I'm not Indigenous. He was taking patients. And one called me back and said, how did you know to call my number? I'm not taking patients. And another one said, we stopped our registration list because we have over 2,000 names on it.
Wow, okay.
I mean, what am I supposed to do? Can doctors just up and leave the country and leave their practice and leave their patients high and dry?
Good question.
Where's their oath of practice?
Good question, Erica. Good way to end the week. Thank you. Good luck to you. Bye-bye. Okay, sports news. Coming up next, a big day for the Ottawa Senators yesterday with the signing of Brady Tkachuk and giving the boots to the Leafs. You gotta love it. Steve Warren, this is City News.
Wherever you are. local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Friday, October 15th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 17. It's 18 degrees in Smiths Falls, and here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. The formal announcement still to come from Washington, but land borders to vaccinated visitors will open on November 8th. The plan would require you to show proof of vaccination to Customs and Border Protection when they request it. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is working on the operational details. For example, what's not clear right now is whether people who receive doses of two different vaccines would be considered fully vaccinated by the United States. Prime Minister's office has announced a new federal cabinet will be unveiled October 26th. Parliament returns late November. Here's City News Parliament Hill reporter Cormac McSweeney.
In just a week and a half, the Prime Minister will announce who he's picked for his inner circle for this third mandate, which will focus on ending the fight against COVID-19 and setting up the economic recovery. Expect some changes with some veteran ministers getting moved or demoted and some new MPs getting promoted. The new cabinet will have about a month to settle into their new jobs before Parliament is recalled November 22nd, more than 2 months after the election that resulted in a second minority for the Liberals. In a statement, Trudeau's office says the Prime Minister plans to talk by phone with opposition leaders about Canadians' priorities next week, noting COVID supports, travel vaccine requirements, and mandatory vaccinations for the federal public service are high on his list. The Prime Minister also wants to ensure all members of Parliament are fully vaccinated, an issue which will receive support from the Bloc Québécois and NDP, but is at odds with the Conservatives. Cormac McSweeney, Parliament Hill.
City News Time, 11:04. Ontarians who have been vaccinated against COVID-19 can start downloading the new vaccine certificate QR code. Birthdays that fall between January and April can download the scannable certificate today through the province's COVID-19 website. We'll have more from the Premier on this coming up shortly on The Rob Snow Show. Expecting a significant rainfall starting tonight into tomorrow morning. We could get 50 millimeters altogether. Here's City News meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Will come in two chunks, so rain at times heavy tonight, and then again through the morning and into the afternoon on Saturday.
Now, Jill says a steadier rain should pass by game time for the Red Blacks and Alouettes at TD Place Stadium. Will still be showers and some pretty strong winds for the kickoff at 4 o'clock. The province has 496 new cases of COVID-19 today, along with 2 more deaths. Now, 40 of these cases are in Ottawa, 12 in eastern Ontario. There is 1 new case in Renfrew County, but no new cases in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark. 1.4% of the over 35,900 cases came back positive. A British lawmaker has been stabbed to death. It happened during a meeting with his constituents.
British police confirmed that a man has been arrested after the stabbing in eastern England. Sky News have reported that Conservative lawmaker David Amos was the lawmaker attacked at Belfair's Methodist Church in Leigh-on-Sea, a seaside town east of London. Amos's London office confirmed that police and ambulance had been called but had no other details. Amos has been a Member of Parliament for Leigh-on-Sea since 1997, but has been a lawmaker since 1983. 2 other British lawmakers have been attacked in the past 21 years during their regular meetings known as surgeries, where local members of their area can present concerns and complaints. Karen Chamas, London.
And I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's a pillar of community opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
Super happy to be back in Ottawa. It's been a crazy day, and just words can't really express how happy and excited I am to be back.
Oh, man, so much to talk about today. The Brady Tkachuk signing for the Ottawa Senators, and then the Ottawa Senators go out and they beat the Toronto Maple Leafs and send all of those hapless Leaf fans in our arena home disappointed. And Steve Warren is back from the Sensation podcast and Steve Warren Project. And Steve, all in all, that's a good day in sports in my book, Steve.
Yeah, October 14th, 2021 was a pretty damn good day to be an Ottawa Senator fan, was it not?
It absolutely was. First of all, let's break down the deal. What do you think of the deal? How it came together? How it's structured? Give me your take on it all. I can't wait to hear it.
I think it's great. I think you got Brady Tkachuk. He's been, last week was the first anniversary of the day he was eligible to sign an extension. And this thing, it didn't really get going in earnest, as we know, until this past summer. But, it's just, I think, a fantastic deal. 7-year contract worth $57.5 million. It's an average annual value of $8.2 million. And it's structured in such a way, Rob, that kind of accounts for the lack of revenues during COVID here. $4 million for this season.
Yeah.
And then it slowly ramps up. Sort of in the middle years, it's around 10.5, and then it fades out to about $8 and $7 million in the last couple of years. So it's well structured, and I think it's a terrific deal and such an important deal because I think it shows full commitment to not just the rebuild, but to a proper rebuild, because so much of the fan base has been really skeptical about this thing. This, to me, is kind of the final nail in things to say, yes, they are going in the right direction, and they are trying to do it the right way.
Yeah. When I think about it, it could have been a much different script this morning, say, for the reporters on the local sports beat, Bruce Garriock and Ken Warren, Scanlon, all of them, right? Like the lead sports story is Sens lock up future captain for 7 years and beat the Leafs in their home opener, right? It's smiles all around.
Yeah.
But for most of the week, it looked like it was going to be a very different story, okay? Still no end in sight for the impasse in the contract negotiations with heart and soul left winger Brady Tkachuk, and Sens lose their home opener and don't look good doing it, or something like that. It could have easily been the script, but it's not. And it's really just kind of, I think, it's turned the spirit of the entire fan base around. What do you think, Steve?
Oh, I don't think there's any question. Think about that moment in the first period where Brady Tkachuk walks out into one of the suites with the spotlight on him, walks out like a rock star.
Yeah.
The fans start chanting his name. He's up on the big screen waving at everybody. Imagine now, in an alternate universe, if you put up Brady Tkachuk's photo and he hadn't signed yesterday in the arena. I wonder if it's not chanting Brady, Brady, and maybe, some boos you might hear, because a lot of fans in the process of this whole thing, and they were led astray, I'll be honest, they were kind of led astray by media reports suggesting this, suggesting that, one media report conflicting the media report that came before it. Fans were starting to take up sides, and some people were getting frustrated with the whole thing. But I think the slate is wiped clean now. I think everybody is in a mode of, let's go forward here. The future captain has signed, and I think everybody's really excited again.
Yeah. Steve Warren is with us of the Steve Warren Project and the Sens Nation podcast. SteveWProject.com, SensNationHockey.com. The narrative has been here in Ottawa for so many seasons now. The owner's a mercurial cheapskate. Nobody wants to play here. If you're a Sens fan, you're going to have to get used to just losing the club's best players just as they're entering the prime of their careers, yada, 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 yada. And, the owner. Everybody can spend Eugene Melnick's money better than Eugene Melnick, right? But it's a great tradition in sports to actually hate the owner of your team, so I don't put much stock in it. But, I don't think he can spin that web anymore, Steve. When you look at the players who form the core of the Senators and the kind of money they're making, it's hard to say that the Senators are cheaping out. Shabbat, $8 million for the next, 7 years? Something like that. Batherson, $5 million for the next 6 years. And now Brady around for 7 years at more than $8 million a year. Shabbat, 24, Batherson, 23, Brady, 22 years old. It's not cheap. You didn't go cheap on the best players on the core of the franchise. What do you think, Steve?
No, I agree with everything. You could throw in Matt Murray into that equation.
Murray, yeah.
They brought, that's Eugene Melnick saying, I'll cut a check for what you're telling me is a number one goalie in the league. He hasn't been to this point, and now he's under the weather to start the season. So that's a bit of a concern, but it's not an injury or anything. If Colin White you can throw in that mix, it ends up being maybe a misevaluation. Maybe they paid him too much, but that's Eugene Melnyk saying, okay, you're telling me Colin White's worth this? I'm paying that. For sure, I mean, I've been as critical of Eugene Melnyk when the time comes that you need to be critical about the guy. He's said some things, he's done some things, his behavior has bothered some people. But at this point in time, I mean, even the fans who lined up to pay for those billboards that read Melnyk out, they have to at least give Melnyk some credit for stepping up on this one. It's not a short-term deal like Matthew Tkachuk signed at the same age. It's not a cheap deal like so many expected he'd try to shoehorn in there. So absolutely, the Tkachuk deal was the one everybody was kind of keeping an eye on as to whether Melnyk was really doing this the right way, and he gave the club and the fan base exactly what they wanted.
Okay. I was thinking yesterday, when have I been this happy to be a Sens fan? And I two instances came to mind. One is Pajot, 4 goals and 2 chicken parms. Oh, right. Okay. Right. Do you remember that? I don't know. I can't remember what season that was. Was that 15, maybe something like that? I can't remember now.
I think so.
Against the Rangers, I believe, wasn't it? Against the Rangers, I think he had the 4 goals and 2 chicken parms. Anyway, just classic Sens moment. And of course, Alfie puts the puck past Miller and the Sabres and sends the Sens to the Stanley Cup Finals. I mean, it's for me, this signing is like it's in that kind of rarefied air for me. I mean, I just feel great I was not feeling great a week ago. I'm feeling great now as a Sens fan.
Well, again, like I said off the top, that's an amazing, special day to be a Sens fan. You think about the Sens taking a 3-0 lead against the hated rivals and hanging on to win 3-2. That in itself is a good night's work. But I think that we'll remember Brady Tkachuk waving to the crowd triumphantly on the day he gets signed. I think that'll be a day that people will remember for a long, long time. So, I mean, Sens fans have every right to be excited, and the future looks really good. I mean, that's a really good Toronto Maple Leaf hockey club, and it was a track meet last night.
Oh, yeah.
There was no defense. I can't imagine either coach is very happy with the defensive performance. It was a classic track meet, kind of, pond hockey. Yeah. But we all say that's the Leafs' specialty, though. The Leafs, that's what they're all about. And the Sens hung with them, both in speed, both in skill. I mean, that's really encouraging if you're a Sens fan. They come out with their own.
I don't think they're intimidated at all. I don't think, and I think Drake Batherson this summer basically going to the most exclusive hockey camp in the world and spending the summer training with Sidney Crosby, Nathan McKinnon, all those great East Coast players, Steve. I think that must do wonders for someone's confidence, right? I think the guy is he's going to be so dynamite. I don't think there's anything that they got a little lucky last night too. I mean, one was off the skate, could have been called back. It wasn't. The other went off a guy's body after a bounce. So they did get some bounces last night too. So we'll see what is the game tomorrow. Hockey Night in Canada game. Be a good game. All right.
Oh, yeah.
All right. We are into Week 6 of the National Football League. I think your team is going to be one of the games to watch this week. Classic NFL matchup. Green Bay Packers, Chicago Bears. Steve Warren. Who do you like? Steve Warren.
Oh, there's no question.
Oh, no question, of course, right? Yeah.
I'm something of a Packer fan, as you know, but I do think the Packers will win this thing quite handily. Justin Fields, who's their rookie sensation quarterback, who has not yet performed to the level they hope. He's kind of been shoehorned in there because I think they were trying to start the year without him, but they realized after a while, he's a guy we got to go to. He hyperextended his knee last week, so He's going to play, but I don't know if he'll be his explosive best as far as the running game goes. So I'm certainly going to take the Packers there all day long. And a side note to that thing, it's going to be a weird-looking one. That's the oldest rivalry in all the NFL, and the Packers will be rolling in there with their home greens as the Bears decide to wear their 1936 classic whites on Sunday.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, it was all going so well for my team, the Denver Broncos. They were 3-0, and now they're 3-2. You said last week, Rob, don't worry, they're playing Pittsburgh. And then they went into Pittsburgh. They played Pittsburgh. They got rolled. They got steamrolled by Pittsburgh. Like Pittsburgh, who's not the Steelers are not a very good team. And the Broncos, they're bad. And I've been reading the Denver Post, and they're just getting the sports columnists in the Denver Post are just like, fire everybody. It's just incredible. So they're playing the Raiders, and I have no confidence. My confidence now has been shattered in my Denver Broncos. So let's just not speak of it anymore.
Can I just give you one thing to hang your hat on?
Okay.
Well, you may have noticed that the Las Vegas Raiders head coach kicked up a little dust this week, resigning over some controversial emails.
That's right.
So they've got their interim coach in there, and Rich Bisaccia. So I think that's got to be a little bit of a distraction. So I wouldn't necessarily write off your Broncos this week at home.
Okay. In your opinion, what's the must-watch game of the week for Week 6, Steve?
I think the Chargers and Ravens should be a dandy.
Chargers and Ravens.
Two of the most exciting young quarterbacks in football with Justin Herbert with the Chargers. He's off to a fantastic start. And we all know about Lamar Jackson and how exciting he is. A note there that he just missed practice this week with an illness. We don't know exactly what his status is. He's probably going to play. That's something to keep in mind if you're putting a couple of shekels down. But there you have a couple of 4-1 clubs. Should be a dandy.
Yep. Tomorrow's a good day to be an Ottawa sports fan. 4 o'clock, it's the Red Blacks and Alouettes, and then you roll into Hockey Night in Canada. Nothing better than that. Steve.
It's a great time.
Yep. Enjoy the weekend, Steve. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Rob.
Yep. From the Steve Warren Project and the Sens Nation podcast, that is Steve Warren. Check him out, stevewproject.com, sensnationhockey.com. Be right back. Doug Ford is supposed to be holding a news conference any moment now. We'll join it when it starts on The Rob Snow Show on City News.
Papa Jack was started 14 years ago, really by accident more than anything. A friend of mine had bought a grocery store. A popcorn machine was in there. He didn't want it. I ended up by buying it. My family thought I was nuts. When I first said, come and pick up this popcorn machine, my son said, what the heck for? I won't use exact words. But anyway, we started, and it just kept on growing and growing. But at the time, I was the only one selling popcorn in Ottawa. But we persevered as a family, and here we are. So it's been very, very rewarding for my family and myself. And to see our brand name, Papa Jack, and Papa Jack came out of, I wanted something that was going to be very bilingual. So Papa, and then in Ontario, everybody called me Jack, even though my name is Jacques. In Quebec, it's fine, it's Jacques, but in Ontario, it was always Jack. So we married the two together, Papa, Jack. With the store that we have on Thurston Drive, it basically, the factory's in the back. If you come into the store, you can see how the popcorn is being made during the week. So it adds an extra layer of, you can see the sanitation, you can see how we do it. It's not like making popcorn. Most people thought when I started this, I was making popcorn in my garage or in my basement. No, never did. It was started in this building, in the back of the building, and then we kept growing and growing until what we have now. My daughter and my son came up with a brilliant idea to do a fundraiser online. So basically all people have to do is to register here, and we give them a special code number. And with that code number, they tell their friends or their neighbors, everybody, to buy online from us with that code number. And then at the end of each period, could be 2 weeks, could be a month, then we'll pay them a 20% of all the businesses that we got through that code number. One thing I'd like to say is thank you to all the Ottawa people who have supported us and support local businesses. Sometimes people, they talk about buying locally. Now it becomes that much more important to buy locally, to support your local businesses, because not too many of them are going to survive this. We're fortunate that we're so far so good.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Coming up to 11:23 here, Rob Snow Show. Coming up right after the 11:30 news, it is the Queen's Park Week in Review with our MPPs. And is it the usual cast of characters this week, David? I haven't even taken a look at who our MPPs are this week. Gilles Bisson is New Democrat from Timmins.
Yes.
John Fraser is the MPP for Ottawa South, Liberal MPP, Ottawa South.
He will be here, yep.
And Dave Smith, the PC MPP for Peterborough, Kawartha. So we had been hoping that the Ford News Conference not only would have been underway, but would have largely been concluded by now, and it has yet to begin. But also, we have these reports that the government is soon going to announce a plan for further reopening, the relaxing of capacity limits for restaurants, gyms, those kinds of businesses. The announcement, it's been leaked to the media. There's going to be some kind of announcement next week, but then it'll probably take 2 weeks before they actually come into effect because the Chief Medical Officer of Health for the province of Ontario wants to see what the impact is on people gathering together for Thanksgiving, which I don't know how much sense that makes, given that they've already eased the capacity limits at arenas like Canadian Tire Centre last night. More than 15,000 fans out to the hockey game last night at Canadian Tire Centre. It wasn't a sellout in Toronto for the Leafs home opener. Imagine, first hockey game in almost something like 600 days for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And it's, this classic matchup, Toronto and Montreal, the Maple Leafs and the Habs, and you can't sell that game out. Isn't that incredible? That's kind of incredible when you think about it, right? But nevertheless, the point being, why are you having 18,000 people in an NHL hockey arena, but the local restaurant down the street from Scotiabank Arena or Canada Centrum is at half capacity? It's kind of silly. The Ontario government, in addition to talking about all that, the Ontario government, and all kinds of rumors and speculation about what's going on behind the scenes with $10 a day childcare. And this was kind of like the signature big government program from the Trudeau Liberals. That the pitch was there. Even prior to the election campaign, you had Mr. Trudeau going all across the country, signing childcare agreements with provincial premiers of all political stripes. But he can't come to an agreement yet with Doug Ford here in Ontario. The rumors are this is all tied now to the timing of the Ontario election. And Premier Ford wants to be able to do his kind of own victory lap on $10 a day daycare and kind of cut the opposition off at the pass. It'll be one less thing that the opposition will be able to attack Doug Ford on come election time. That instead of going after Doug Ford on the lack of childcare, Doug Ford's going to be the one who's going to be saying, well, actually, I'm the one who came to an agreement with Mr. Trudeau on $10 a day daycare. Remember, we had the news conference. We were side by side. Collaborative federalism is alive and well, right? And we did that for the people, right? But the Liberals have these child care agreements in place with 7 provinces, 1 territory, But a senior Ontario Progressive Conservative official spoke to the CBC this week and said, Ontario wants more money. Now, apparently, it's like something like $10 billion, but not enough. And I want to ask these MPPs, I mean, look, light rail's been down for 26 days here in Ottawa. The Ontario taxpayer, because these are cost-shared projects, right? One-third, one-third, one-third. Municipal government puts money in, the provincial government puts money in, the federal government puts money in. But what responsibility does the Ontario government have to make sure Ontario taxpayers are getting value for money on, a $2 billion light rail project in Ottawa, for example, or a $28 billion public transit project that's planned for Toronto, something like the Ontario line, for example? What oversight does the province have when it comes to these multi-billion-dollar transit projects? And don't they owe it to the Ontario taxpayers to make sure there's value for money and that these transit operations actually work out the way they're supposed to? So all of that is coming up after the news during Queen's Park Week in Review here on City News.
FM and 1310 AM.
This is Friday, the 15th of October. Good morning, I'm Jason White. Right now in Ottawa, cloudy skies, 17 degrees, 19 in Smiths Falls. Here's what's making news this hour. Cross-border shopping trips are back on as of November 8th. That's when the U.S. will reopen its land crossings to Canadians. You'll have to show proof of COVID vaccination, but we don't yet know what they'll accept as proof, nor whether mixed doses of vaccine will be accepted by the states. Your QR code to prove you've been vaccinated in Ontario can be downloaded today. They're starting to allow people born in January through April. People who are born later in the year will be allowed to get their code off the website later to prevent the site from crashing under a crush of traffic all at once. The Premier was expected to have more to say on the QR code program at 11, then it was 11:15. We're still waiting for the Premier to take the podium. More charges in the Panda Game pandemonium. 5 more people identified from photos publicized by Ottawa Police last week. 3 adult men, 1 youth, and a woman have now been charged. That's now 8 people charged in total. The post-game shenanigans in Sandy Hill included vandalism, even the rolling of a parked car. Ottawa's new Central Public Library is getting more expensive before even breaking ground. A city memo reveals that a number of factors, including construction prices, have gone up. increasing the cost by a total of $131 million. Of that, the Ottawa Public Library will pay $28 million. The city will be on the hook for an additional $36 million. City News Time, 11:32. I'm Jason White. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Strong voice.
Strong opinions.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Premier Ford's news conference is just underway. This is what it sounds like right now. Premier Ford
ensuring that everyone can be ready well before the new enhanced certificate takes effect on October 22nd. As of 6 a.m. on October 18th, any individual, regardless of your birth date, will be able to log on and download. Also, as of today, businesses and organizations can download and verify Ontario app to scan and verify customers' QR codes. This will give businesses an opportunity to test and get used to the app well ahead of October 22nd implementation of the enhanced certificate. Together, the enhanced certificate and Verify Ontario app will make it easier and more secure for Ontarians to show their proof of vaccine. As we've developed these tools, protecting your privacy has been top of mind. Minister Elliott and Rashid will go into more details, but I want to thank everyone involved in standing these up in a record time, and thank you to everyone. They play a very significant role in our continued fight with COVID-19. And we continue to do well in this battle. We're doing well because our approach was cautious and built on the advice of our public health experts. We've seen what happens in other provinces that move too quickly, and the result can be devastating. Here in Ontario, hospitalizations and ICU admissions remain stable as our daily case counts have declined, even weeks after we began in-class learning. Because of this success, because so many of you have rolled up your sleeves, we're now able to finalize our plans to exit Step 3 of the roadmap to reopen and cautiously lift more public health measures. The work began months ago, and we're finalizing the plan now, including where and when we may need to reapply measures should they be required to stop a surge in transmission. The Chief Medical Officer of Health has been clear. The objective is to avoid further lockdowns. And if additional measures are necessary, they will be localized, tailored, and aimed at limiting disruption to businesses and families. Because this is not just a plan for the short term, but for the long term as well. It's a plan that will stand the test of time.
All right, okay. I think
we want
that's
to give
good.
Ontario.
Get the idea. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry that's eating into our time. The Premier's news conference was scheduled to start at 11, then it was pushed back to 11:15, and it ended up starting late. But let's get into Queen's Park Week in Review and get some immediate instant analysis. Welcoming today, Dave Smith, Progressive Conservative MPP for Peterborough-Kawartha. Good morning, Dave.
Good morning, Rob.
Yeah, nice to hear from you. John Fraser, Liberal MPP, Ottawa South. John.
Good morning, Rob.
Morning, John. And Gilles Bisson, New Democrat MPP from Timmins. Good morning, Gilles.
Good morning.
Gilles, what's your reaction to what you've heard from the Premier so far?
Well, listen, there are things that have to be done, and they're finally getting them done. I think my comment would be they've been slow rolling all of this stuff out because part of it is that they've got a bit of a problem with their base, with their caucus and the cabinet about some of these measures. And as a result, it's kind of delayed, first of all, the implementation of some of these policies. And I'm not saying what was announced today is necessarily bad, but it's been slow coming. The other part is that in the end, we're where we're at. Like I was listening to the Premier saying, let's look at what's happened in other provinces and how lucky we are because we've taken a cautious approach. Not at all. Like we ended up with a third and the fourth wave when the medical community was saying that we were going to get a third and the fourth wave, and the government reacted. And I guess that's what I would end on. The government policy in the end, some of it has been good. I'm not going to say it's all bad, but it's been a reaction to the situation rather than being proactive.
John Fraser, your reaction, please.
Yeah, no, I agree with Gilles. I think, the government's been late on so many things. We've been reacting to things instead of getting to where we know we have to go, the vaccine passport. I think what was announced today is good. It's late. You know, the Premier sat on it for 2 months because he didn't believe in it, but it's something that we know that small businesses we're going to need to help get back on their feet again. So, I hope very much that it's effective and that it works. And we'll see. And we'll have to talk to small businesses about how well it works and how well it works for individuals logging on. So I don't want to prejudge it either way. And I'm very hopeful that it works because it's really, really important for our small businesses, especially over the next 4 to 6 months of trying to recover. Well, we're still in a pandemic that has some risks, as so many people have said.
All right. So, Dave Smith, what I'm hearing from your colleagues here on the panel today is maybe not too little, but maybe too late. What do you think with this technology?
We have taken a cautious, measured approach all throughout COVID-19, and you're seeing the positive results of it. Right now, we're looking at 27 infections per 100,000, which is among the lowest, not only in Canada, but in North America. By comparison, you've got Alberta at just over 300, Saskatchewan at just over 300. We've done it right. We've measured how we should be doing it. And they mentioned that we take a reactive approach. Could any of them have predicted that we were going to have a variant like the Delta variant or the new Mu variant that's out there? No. So you do have to react when those things happen. And we have done it right. And you can see that. We're not back into a lockdown, although there was a fourth wave. We were able to get through that. Yeah. Our schools are the safest in the country because of the approach that we've taken.
Okay. Who wants to respond there?
Rob, I just
John, go ahead, John. Yeah.
Just say quickly, it's like David's forgetting the second and third wave where the Premier kind of went maybe not full Kinney on us, but we ended up in a position last April where the government couldn't figure out whether it wanted to close parks or card people, and we didn't know where we were going. So that's not proactive. That's not reactive. That's just not knowing what you need to do. And the point is I can see in the first wave, but we knew we were going to need vaccine passports. We know we need vaccine mandates. We know we got to go there. But we wait months and months before we do it.
Okay. Sorry, Gilles. Go ahead, Gilles.
I'll echo what John's saying, is that it's been a reactive response, and a big part of it is that Ford has got problems. The Tories have got their base, and you saw it in the federal election with the PPC. There's a reaction against all of these measures, and they're trying to navigate their way through that politically. And unfortunately, when you're the government, you can't let your politics drive what you do. You have to let.
I don't know. I mean, the closest MPP that's aligned to the PPC is Randy Hillier, and Ford kicked him to the curb long ago. Gilles, I don't know how fair.
My point is, if you looked at the federal election, the PPC got a lot of votes. In my riding, they took about 2,000 votes from the NDP. And they took about another 2,000 votes from the Tory.
Right.
And it's because they were reacting against the whole COVID measures. So that's the problem that the Tories have got. That's the point that I'm making.
Well, Rob, it's
sorry, Dave, go ahead.
The Liberals are focusing on votes and not what's in the best interest of the people of Ontario, and that's what we've been focusing on. We're making sure that we're making decisions based on evidence, based on advice from people like the Chief Medical Officer of Health. If they want to do their decisions based on polling and whether or not they're going to get votes or they're going to lose votes on something, they're not going to make right decisions. We're making decisions based on what's the most valuable thing for the people of Ontario.
Nobody's saying we would do it
health and safety.
Yeah.
Dave?
I think Gilles was saying that that's what you guys are doing, not what we're doing.
Point.
That was his point, yeah.
Okay. I want to ask you something. There was big news out of the province of Quebec. The province of Quebec on mandatory vaccinations for healthcare workers, for example, something your party, John, has been calling for. Mm-hmm. What's the NDP stance been on that, Jill?
We agree.
Mandatory.
You need to go to
you see, Premier Legault said you have to. The deadline is today. It was supposed to be today. You need to be vaccinated by October 15th, or we're going to put you on suspension without pay. But the problem is they have 15,000 healthcare workers not vaccinated. So Minister Dubé, the health minister in Quebec, said, well, I can't, my healthcare system will fall apart if I have to let go 15,000 people. So they delayed it by a month. So what's stopping the same thing? What's healthcare look like in Ontario if we have to suspend every healthcare worker who's not vaccinated?
So a couple of things. Vaccine mandates have existed in Ontario and Canada for years. If you want to travel to Asia, you want to go to Africa, you want to go to South America, you need to be vaccinated. You do not get in those countries without vaccination. So vaccine mandates are nothing new. We vaccinate our children. We say you need to be vaccinated to go to school. So this is nothing new. This is what's happening now is there's a reaction against all of this for social media and personal views, etc. And I think we need to understand where people are at. There are people that are upset, and I get it. I understand. I'm upset. I don't like the idea of, where we're at. Nobody likes it, but you have to take measures. As far as vaccine...
but what if it means, Gilles, like in Timmins, what's the big hospital in Timmins? Is it just called the Timmins Hospital?
Timmins
or what?
District Hospital.
Okay. So what if 20% of the workers at the Timmins Hospital, you have to suspend them without pay?
20% of the workers. I've already talked to Kate Fife, who runs the hospital.
Right.
It's far less than that.
Okay.
Most people in Ontario are now starting to take up the vaccine because I think people are recognizing this measure is something that's going to be difficult for them. And you took a look at Mr. Barber's bill, jabs or whatever he calls his bill, jabs or jobs.
Jabs and jobs or whatever.
That's a simplistic approach to this. The reality is, as an employer, you cannot allow people into your workplace that may infect your clientele.
But are you, as leaders, I guess what I want to get at, as leaders, are you willing to suffer the consequences of potentially major staffing shortages on the front lines of both healthcare and long-term care in order to impose a vaccine mandate? John, why don't you take that, John? Because you're pushing that too, John.
I'll just say, I have a private member's bill that will be debated next Wednesday that makes vaccines mandatory for frontline workers in healthcare and education. And I put that forward because I think it's reasonable for a family to expect that the person who's teaching their child in school or caring for them in a child care facility, that person's been vaccinated. That is a reasonable expectation. But
what if it means? Sorry, John. But what if it means? Allow me to interrupt. Yeah. What if it means more cataract surgery delays in Ottawa? What if it means more cancer treatments delayed in Ottawa? What if it means service suffers at the Pearly or what have you because people are not vaccinated and they're not on the job?
Yeah. So the thing is, the percentage of people who are not getting vaccinated is very small. And I think the thing is...
Well, in Quebec, John, I'm sorry, John.
Yeah,
in Quebec, it's 600 hospital beds across Quebec. Well, come on. I mean, do you really think it's all that different? Are the percentages really going to be all that different?
Rob, we have a disease that spreads exponentially. And I think what it comes down to is, what do people expect? I mean, do they say, well, it's okay that person's not vaccinated who's caring for my mom in a long-term care home? I mean, the government just did that. The government just did that. They just made it mandatory in long-term care homes 3 months too late. Like, it's about what the reasonable expectation is.
All right, okay.
And people have to get there. And I don't think anyone on this panel is going to say that a healthcare worker shouldn't be vaccinated. I don't think it is. I think that's a perfectly reasonable thing for people to expect.
Now, Dave.
Standard.
Now, Dave, your government has been accused of basically punting this off to the individual administrators of healthcare facilities instead of imposing a mandate. Why did you go that route?
We've imposed it in long-term care. And,
in long-term care? What about acute care? Right? So
92% of people in long-term care right now working in long-term care are vaccinated, so we're pushing them over with that. But as you pointed out, very rightly so, we have to make sure that we have the capacity in our healthcare system. We have to make sure of that. And there are measures that we can take to mitigate risk. We can have people working in different divisions in a hospital where they're not in client care. Same thing with police departments. Okay. We can have people in the
Premier. I'm sorry to interrupt, Dave. The Premier's being asked about this very issue right now by a news reporter, and I want to hear his response, okay? About Quebec. Do you have the feed, David? Give me the feed, David.
Radio Canada.
Hi, Natasha. How you doing?
I'm great, thanks.
Good.
You mentioned Quebec. Quebec this week delayed and essentially failed for now to implement mandatory vaccination in healthcare. 22,000 healthcare workers remain unvaccinated there, despite the threat of being suspended without pay. Are you concerned that imposing a similar measure in Ontario will yield similar results? And why did you wait until today to consult hospitals on that?
Well, first of all, Natasha, thank you. And I can see what's happening over in Quebec. I can see what's happening in BC slowing things down. And on one hand, I've been up here preaching. I'm going to continue to preach. I want every single healthcare worker to get vaccinated. The reality is we're seeing tens of thousands, 15%, that refuse to get vaccinated. It's very, very concerning. And I ask myself, you know, on one side, get vaccinated. On the other side, the docs and the nurses have been stretched to the limit. They are stressed out to the max. We're already short of approximately about 15% on the frontline healthcare workers, and we're going to add another 10 to 15% on top of that, which is 10,000 or more than 10,000, tens of thousands of frontline healthcare workers. I've sent out a letter to all the hospitals, and there's a big difference here. There's a difference between, and by the way, they're all great hospitals, great downtown hospitals, versus hospitals in Timmins that I visited, or in Sudbury or in North Bay that are in desperate need of frontline healthcare workers. What is this going to do to the system months down the road? What's it going to do when people go in there for cancer surgery, diagnostics? What is it going to do to our healthcare system as a whole? So those are the answers that I'm requesting that the CEOs send back to us, and it gives us a better idea. But again, I encourage everyone, please get a vaccine.
All right, thank you. We have to stop. We'll be right back. Queen's Park Week in Review on City News.
Well, we're celebrating our 43rd year. It's still family operated. We're in our second generation. We, pre-COVID, we're at about 1,000 employees. We have 20 stores from coast to coast in Canada. We do our own manufacturing. Right here in Ottawa, we have about 160 people that support Canadian-made manufacturing in addition to our retail stores. Taking you back to mid-March and the impact of the pandemic on Lee Valley. Lee Valley was actually in a tough spot. We had just launched our website a few months prior to that, and we were going through, a fairly typical deployment dive where your customers retract as they adjust to the website. And then under stress already, this pandemic hit. And in the early days, it was pretty critical. It hit us really hard. Stores were closed. We weren't sure what to do, so we had to go right into survival mode. As a result, we had to take our workforce almost back to half of where we were at because the stores were closed, and with 20 stores, that's a big retail workforce. But what we were able to do pretty quickly, with a little luck, being essential, selling tools and hardware, we were able to adjust our business model, with respect to the stores and our fulfillment operation. That new website that we were under stress worked out well for us because as the world was under house arrest, people were looking to online, and the conversion to our online sales in some cases almost doubled. And we saw tremendous interest in things to do at home. Where we were lucky once again and fortunate is that our product offering. Work at home tools, craft, hobbies, backyard, container gardening, you name it, what we sold was really appealing to people. With respect to our stores, Lee Valley, a rare unknown fact was that we were one of the pioneers of curbside pickup. We've been doing it for 25 years. Pretty much dove right into the application to help with the contactless shopping right away. We took the application, and it's not like a Apple application where you have to download it to your phone and clutter up your phone. This literally resides right on our website. So you walk into our store with your phone, you pull up our website, and there's a little scan icon. You just tap that, select your store, off you go. You go through the showroom, you scan product, you can read more about it, you can check the on-hand, you can add it to your cart, continue to shop, and when you're ready, you just submit it to the counter. We'll go pick it for you. We'll call out your name, we'll check you out, send you on your way. You haven't touched anything. It's completely safe, and it's using a device you're comfortable with and a website that you're familiar with. Amazingly, 9 out of 10 people that used it loved it and want to use it again.
So keep up with
Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Okay. Can we move on to other things?
Sure.
All right. Gilles Bisson, John Fraser, and Dave Smith, all with me, MPPs in the Ontario legislature. Dave's with the PCs, John's with the Liberals, Gilles with the Democrats. We had 15,000 people at the Senators game last night here in Ottawa. Great win for the Ottawa Senators over the Toronto Maple Leafs. More than 18,000 at the Leaf game the other night when they played the Habs. Okay, so we have these big crowds in the NHL arenas, but we still have capacity limits for businesses like restaurants and gyms. Maybe an announcement on the way that could see those restrictions eased, maybe in 2 weeks' time. How wise is it to be easing restrictions now? And because I cut you off, Dave, and I apologize for that. I did want to hear directly from the Premier. I hope you don't mind. But I'd like you to take that question first. Dave Smith.
Thanks, Rob. I appreciate that. And I'm always happy to defer to the Premier. He's got some great things to say. When we're talking about the capacity limits, I think that when you take a look at what we have done since June, we have had that very measured approach. We opened some things, lessened some of the restrictions in June, and we were told you're not doing enough. We did it again in July. We did it in August, early September. Even through the fourth wave, we were able to make sure that we didn't have rollbacks. So all of this has been a very measured approach to it. Time and time again, we have been listening to the consensus from the science table, from the Chief Medical Officer of Health, those people who are the scientists, who know or understand how the virus is going to be transmitted. So we've taken their advice throughout, and I think that's the prudent approach. Listen to the experts. Listen to the Chief Medical Officer of Health. We're following that plan, and as the Premier has said, you're going to see a revised roadmap coming out later next week.
Okay. All right. Okay, Gilles, how wise is it right now, easing restrictions for these
First of all, I'm not sure there was an answer there from Dave, but that's another question.
Okay.
First of all, listen, the problem is that the application of this, size of people and the number of people allowed in a venue has been very unevenly distributed. If you talk to small businesses, bars and restaurants, they're pretty frustrated. They're saying, you can go to a Leafs game, you can pack the place, but you can't come into my bar. So they're not necessarily saying you should have larger crowds, but they're saying the rules should be somewhat equal. So that's the first part. There's the way it's been applied. The second thing is only time will tell. Let's hope that the government is right and the health experts are right when they say to opening up and allowing larger crowds into areas. Let's hope that happens. But I think it's very conditional on people still, being careful, wearing masks, making sure they're vaccinated, doing the things that got to be done in order to try to prevent the spread.
Okay, John Fraser?
Yeah, so I didn't quite understand Dave's answer, but I did listen to the chief.
Well, he said an announcement's coming next week.
Yeah,
Give his opinion. We're giving ours.
And just the chief medical officer of health said this was a government decision for large venues. That's what he said, and I think to be fair,
he also said it was based on science.
Dave,
he said it was based on consensus.
Dave, you got
himself and others.
Dave, do you want my time? I'll just cede it to you.
All right.
If you don't want to hear my answer.
All right. Heel. Let's go. Come on. We only got 90 seconds left. Let's go.
So if I want to, here's the thing. The Premier went and was lobbied by downtown Bay Street, and he forgot Main Street. Because if you own a bar or a gym, your reasonable question is, why is it okay for them to do that, to take that giant step, and they're holding me back? Why didn't they come to me first? And that's a fair question. And they're asking that. And Dave, your government hasn't been able to answer that because there is no good answer.
All right. No good answer, Dave. No good answer. Okay. All right.
I would disagree completely with
I'm sure you would. I'm sure you would. It wouldn't be Queen's Park Week in Review without it, Dave, let me tell you. All right, look, that's our time for this week. I'm so glad that we could get together and boot around these very important issues again and even have the Premier drop in from time to time.
Yeah, it's a good thing. We always want to hear from the Premier.
By the way, John, Industrial Avenue, I got gas this morning for $1.31 a liter.
Oh, my gosh. I'm going to head over. My tank's low.
Yep. What are you paying, Dave, in Peterborough for gas?
$1.45.
$1.45. What about you, Gilles?
$1.48.
148. Okay. Have a good weekend.
Thanks a lot, Rob.
Don't go driving.
Thanks, Rob.
Bye-bye. That's it for me. Sam LaPrade standing by right after the noon news. This is City News.
The Rob Snow Show.
Weekdays at 9 on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Number 1 for local news in Ottawa and the Valley.
The Rob Snow Show, brought to you by...
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV.